Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With the latest WWE edition of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and we are here to break down everything that happened in the world of WWE over the last week, with less than 1 month remaining until WWE WrestleMania 42. There are 4 SmackDowns and 3 Raws until the biggest show of the year. And the Silver King Adam Silverstein and Vintage Chris Vanini will be along for the ride with you, tackling everything that happens on and off screen. Matches set for WrestleMania, the SmackDown before, the Raw after, WWE Hall of Fame. Anyone who listens to this show knows we don't miss anything on the road to WrestleMania. Speaking of that, we have an absolutely loaded show ahead, so we should not waste any time off the top. Allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So please, folks,
stop being marks for yourselves and go back to being a mark for me.
Go back to being marks for Silver King Vintage and Getting Over in totality. Head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will read them on the air, not on today's show, possibly Thursday. You all know we try to factor them in as much as we possibly can. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube over there. You can listen to the podcast. You can also watch full-length video interviews, and the Silver King has secured the first of at least 2 that will be joining the show on the road to WWE WrestleMania 42 and, technically, NXT Stand and Deliver. Across the board, you can find us on social media at Getting Overcast. Now, normally, this is the part of the show where I would welcome in Vintage Chris Vanini, and he will be joining us for the extended main event of this program. But after that, he will be heading to the airport, hopping on a plane. He'll be out of town for about a week, but we will do our best to find ways to insert his opinions into the show so you keep up with his thoughts and feelings as we maintain this holistic coverage of the road to WrestleMania, and that includes today's show. So he will join us, like I said, for the main event. I already have grades and takes from him that will be integrated into the good, the bad, and the ugly. Also, at the end of the show, Silver King is going to go over a projected WrestleMania 42 card, given what we know to this point and believe will happen over the next 3+ weeks. And later this week, on our premium service that I will share with you later in the program, of course, how you can subscribe and support us, I'm going to give you an additional piece of content, how Silver King would book the entirety of the WrestleMania 42 card from this point forward. So not what we're projecting to happen, but what I would actually do. With that said, it is time to get into this breakdown. As noted, the main event and the good, the bad, and the ugly, both of those are indeed coming up.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
Just a couple items this week. WWE announced that Sid Vicious and Dennis Rodman will be inducted into this year's Hall of Fame class of 2026. Sid will be part of the legacy class, while Rodman will obviously be in the celebrity wing. As always, we will discuss these entrants in much greater detail at greater length on either side of WrestleMania. Sometimes we do it beforehand, other times afterward. It just depends how long the shows are going to run. But both Sid and Rodman are total no-brainers. I'm confused at Sid not being a normal inductee and why they are doing that. Rodman should be incredible. One can argue he's one of 2 most deserving celebrities who have not yet been inducted into the Hall. The other, of course, being Cyndi Lauper. It continues to boggle my mind why she has not been inducted yet. It's actually insulting both to her and the audience. WWE needs to make it right, and it just, I cannot understand why this hasn't happened, particularly with 2 consecutive years in Las Vegas. I'm not suggesting she's a Las Vegas act, but you would think if you were going to induct Cyndi Lauper, it would be Las Vegas, Los Angeles, something like that when you're on the West Coast, and they just haven't done it. So hopefully one day she gets inducted, or at least we get an explanation as to why she has not been. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, Mark Henry this week said Jim Johnston deserves to be inducted not as a celebrity or a special entrant. He wants him in there with the wrestlers. Now, I agree that he should be in the Hall of Fame. His contributions in terms of entrance music and presentation in the era of WWF were completely unmatched. At the same time, I don't necessarily believe inducting him alongside the wrestlers and managers is the right move. There should be a wing of people in the Hall of Fame who have contributed to the business, referees, music producers, agents, whomever. And that should be separate and honored for sure. And Jim should be among the first of those entrants. I just don't think you put him in alongside, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan and guys like that. Similarly, talking WWE Hall of Fame this week was Mark Merrow, who said his ex-wife, Sable, should be inducted. Another absolute no-brainer. Now, Rena has pulled away from associating with WWE over the years, even though, of course, her husband, Brock Lesnar, for those who don't know, remains employed by them. I'm not sure how they could induct Sable, like how they can convince her to let it happen, but she should be in there. Another absolute no-brainer. And you could argue, I would say that Sunny was the first true WWE diva, but she was gone by the time the Divas era really took off, and Sable probably holds that moniker. She sold merch, she drew ratings, she got asses in seats. And how she is not in the Hall of Fame, it's almost certainly that she doesn't want to be honored, not WWE not wanting to honor her, I would guess. But how she's not in, it's a massive hole in terms of the company's history. Staying on WrestleMania weekend, WWE announced Monday that it is allowing the Kill Tony idiots to do a show in place of the Roast of WrestleMania, which failed last year, and the attempted repeat at SummerSlam, which was so poorly received upon being announced, it barely sold any tickets and got canceled. It remains nonsensical to me that WWE continues to push this guy and his unfunny, agenda-filled shit humor on its audience. There's a Netflix relationship, sure, I get it. It's the same reason that Burt Kreischer is on the show more often than he should be. But this is not that. This is WWE choosing to have an event led by this guy, which is just, using the word problematic is really light of a term. Luckily, it's not filmed, so it's not going to be something we have to cover for the sake of doing the show. But I'll just say 3 words on this. F this crap. As far as WWE TV this week, quick overview as we wait for Vintage to get on the horn. Much better SmackDown than 7 days prior. Well, for the men and surprisingly the tag team division. The women over there are in absolute hell. It's a tough watch in all phases of the women's scene. Nothing works. Little makes sense. The talent disparity is vast. They banked everything for 2025 into 2026 on Charlotte Flair being a main eventer, plus the Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Naomi storyline working out. And it completely fell apart. But other than the women's side, SmackDown as a whole was a madhouse. It was absolute chaos. It was like the entire roster took crazy pills 90 minutes before it began, in a good way. Raw was a great show as a building block to WrestleMania from a storytelling standpoint. There was so much to praise, and we will do that momentarily. But man, the in-ring product was shockingly poor, particularly the opener and the final match, which somehow didn't work despite it being Penta and Dominic Mysterio, guys who can wrestle. I'd call WWE TV this week stronger top to bottom than 7 days ago, but wrestling this week, the in-ring product was clearly secondary outside of, let's say, 1.5 matches on SmackDown. It does feel like all of the pieces are coming together with under 4 weeks remaining until WrestleMania, and that being the focus is what's most important, both for WWE, trying to sell tickets and get asses in seats for this show. And by the way, they are doing a 25% off discount for the next 25 days on the road to WrestleMania, meaning all tickets are 25% off now, because I believe that's how many days are actually left. So you can get in a little bit less expensive than it would have been for you previously. But they got to get asses in seats for that show, and they got to deliver compelling television on the road to WrestleMania. And that does feel like what they have been accomplishing, especially over the last 2 weeks. I also wanted to take a moment to shout out Michael Cole, who was vastly improved on Raw commentary this week. We critique when necessary. We praise when possible. Cole and Corey Graves were great on Monday night when it came to storytelling, accentuating key points, selling the developments that we were seeing in front of our eyes. Night and day stuff from Cole compared to the last few weeks. So look, we're going to be critical of him when he messes up and also just when he is poor at his job, which does not usually happen. At least for years, it didn't usually happen. But recently, there have been some struggles. But simultaneously, we are going to make sure to put him over when the opportunity presents itself. And it absolutely did on Monday night. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that there is premium additional content that you can get from the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. And that is because
I happen to love the number 5.
I sure hope you do as well. For $5 a month, $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reaction to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. This week, we're giving you another bonus piece of content, how Silver King would book the remainder of the WrestleMania 42 card. The point in subscribing to buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, it is certainly to get additional content, and we are happy to provide it to you. But really, it is to financially support the continuation of this show. We're a free program. We have one sponsor. For years, we had no sponsors purposefully. We just wanted to deliver performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. But this gives us a way to pay all of our bills, ensure the show continues, while simultaneously giving you some additional content too. So again, across the board, $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. With that said, it is time to get going, breaking down the entire week in WWE. And we're going to kick it off, as we always do, by sliding into the main event.
This is the main event.
All right, let's welcome in vintage Chris Vanini, who is giving us as much time as he possibly can before he needs to jump on a plane. Vintage, welcome to the show. Give us, before we get into this whole main event, a quick overview, your thoughts of WWE this past week.
Pretty good. I feel like it was more of a holding pattern than sending very much forward. But we have still quite a bit of time until Mania, so that's okay. It was not bad, not as explosive as the previous weeks, but that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What I said a moment ago is SmackDown was improved, but still horrendous with the women. And Raw was really solid across the board, but lacked in the wrestling aspect, which is surprising because it's usually strong on that show. That's what I felt, across those, what are they now? 5.5 hours of television. Let's go ahead, break down the top stories, the biggest moments from Raw and SmackDown. We're going to handle all of that in the main event. And then Silver King, as mentioned earlier, will go solo in the good, the bad, and the ugly. But Vintage did send in some grades for those segments, so we will get some opinion from him, even if you don't hear his voice like you're about to right now. Randy Orton opened hour 2 of SmackDown wearing a blood-splattered black and white RKO Everybody shirt, cutting a solo promo in the ring. He was loudly serenaded despite showing off the mangled chair that he used on Cody Rhodes, which he sat in for the promo. Orton talked about having so much fan support as a babyface the last few years, and he said he's been smiling a lot, but all of that smiling, all the times that he gave love back to the fans, it's just felt empty. That generated a couple jeers. Orton said he didn't want his legacy to be the smiles, but rather how many world championships he put around his waist. That immediately turned back into cheers and chants from the crowd. Orton reiterated what we said last week, that he was ready to be the Viper, a killer against Drew McIntyre. But once Drew lost the title to Cody, and the crowd booed at that mention, Randy questioned whether he could do that to a friend. Orton said Rhodes' own words last week, telling him he can be the Viper and to listen to the voices, put him in the required mindset. But while Cody doesn't understand, Randy is aware that hearing the voices turns him into an entirely different and uncontrollable person. Orton then slowly and dramatically recited the chorus of his entrance, declaring that he will beat Rhodes and win the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. He slightly screwed up, reaching his vocal peak before the closing line, and that left the final 10 seconds of the segment really flat, but 98% of this was completely on point, and Orton was loudly cheered for, let's say, 90% of the promo, which is exactly what I expected discussing this match booking in last week's segment. Whereas John Cena firmly turned heel, aligning with a heel in The Rock, the final boss, Orton is just acting as the vicious guy who fans loved 15 years ago. Cody is going to get vociferously booed in Las Vegas, and it's possible that isn't saved for WrestleMania. He might get his ass booed on the road also. You'll remember Cody got booed on the go-home SmackDown before WrestleMania against John Cena. He cut that huge babyface promo, completely turned the tide, and we're like, oh my God, he did it. He salvaged it. And then WrestleMania came, and he got his ass booed anyway. In that way, you can argue maybe Cody is this true heir apparent to Cena, because while he is a pure babyface and fans do know that and want to cheer for him, when you put him up against someone who they love a little bit more or perhaps have loved a little bit longer, they're preferring that guy. I'm just saying, I believe I had that. The segment was exactly what it needed to be. Orton's logic was sound. I love the way he used his theme to close the promo. I just wish he had nailed the finish. He didn't nail the finish.
Do you remember, it wasn't that long ago when the kind of common feeling on Randy was that he wasn't a good promo?
Yes.
Like for most of his career. It was pretty boring. It was very different compared to Cena. And he just kind of was always kind of going through the motions. And then you think about that compared to now and how he can go about what he's doing. It's just a good example of like, you're never too, I guess, old to just, keep improving at your craft and stuff like that.
Experience and age too. I mean,
yeah.
Look at Daniel Bryan now, obviously Bryan Danielson. That it was a heavy criticism of him that he had no character in his career, that he wouldn't get over with the WWE main roster because he was just a great wrestler. And his final runs in WWE were the Planet's Champion, which is pure character. We're not even talking about the Yes Movement. And then, of course, he was firmly in that camp again in that Roman Reigns and Edge feud, which led to his departing the company. But it's the same concept. You can grow and improve. And I think Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson, I never know which name to use on the WWE show for him. I think he even said when he went over to the other company, I would never be as big as I am or as, well-rounded as I am had I not been in the WWE ecosystem. For Orton, you could argue it took him even longer than Bryan simply because he never left. And it still took him a long time to figure out how to promo, figure out how to be a character that people could embrace and not just a guy who kicks ass, which is what he was for so long.
Yeah, and I think that's where you've kind of seen Randy, I know he's bald, but let his hair down a bit and just relax a bit more out there. And it all comes a lot more natural. And this was just captivating the whole time. The way he sat, his facial movements, the camera angle coming at him from low shooting up was a great production call there. And, when Randy's just like saying the words to his theme song, everything he said on that promo got fans cheering.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing he's going to be able to say or do to get them to boo him. You make a dusty comment or something, sure, but continuously he's not going to be viewed as the heel by the in-arena fans,
right,
especially at WrestleMania. So, okay, this is the concern, but Randy did a really good job here.
And especially not at the smarkiest venues, too. I don't know what is on the road for SmackDown, but Raw recently has been at TD Garden. It's going to be at Madison Square Garden next week. And if SmackDown is in similarly large arenas, which I assume it is going to be, I need to look at the calendar, those are not the fans in the big cities that are going to back Cody over him. It's quite the opposite. In fact, it was interesting, though, because when he did talk about not liking the feeling of smiling and getting adulation from fans, how he still felt empty, they did start booing him. And you would have thought, because historically in professional wrestling, especially WWE, cutting the "you people" promo on the fans is what turns them against you. Yes. If they really wanted him to be a heel in this feud, you would think they would have leaned into that a lot stronger than they did, rather than just mention it in passing. You know what I mean?
He needs to RKO a child. That'll do it. punt an
kid.
old man or something like that.
I'm down for him punting a kid. Like, let's do that. That's totally fine. So it continued, obviously, with Orton through the show. A row of baby faces looked down on him as he passed them backstage. Matt Cardona then stepped up to Orton. So Randy got in his face and told him to express himself. Cardona admonished him for destroying Rhodes, so Randy snapped at him, making fun of his action figures. And everyone wanted me to cut this audio. I just didn't have time before the show. We'll have it on the soundboard, I promise. He called him a mark-ass stooge and an indie nerd. Then he went to walk away, but instead he slugged Cardona with a forearm and told him to stay out of his business. So Orton later backstage apologized to Jelly Roll for his actions last week. Jelly Jam told Randy he knows what it's like to be a bad guy judged for all of his mistakes. He wanted Orton to remember how much he means to WWE and the fans. And he reminded Randy how he became a better person and a better man, but now he's regressing into the monster he used to be. He said he doesn't know this version of Orton, and whether it's the voices in his head or someone in his ear, he's not prioritizing the family and friends that he has, the people who ride with him, and he should be, instead of himself and his championship goals. Orton asked him how to fix all this, so Jelly Jam told him, start making good with Cardona, and then go from there, make good with Rhodes, etc. Orton backstage ended a phone call, appreciating the advice he received. Again, we don't know who it was, and he said he was headed to the ring to fix it and make everything right. Orton set up the mangled chair again in the ring. This time, he threw it aside. He said he owed an apology to the fans and Cardona. He then said he was sorry to Cardona for talking shit about action figures and such, saying he would apologize to Rhodes in similar fashion next week. They hugged, shook hands, only for Orton to low blow Cardona, hit an RKO, and repeat last week's attack with the steel steps leaning against the announce table. A dozen officials pulled him off, but after listening to the voices, he snapped again, dragging Cardona into the ring, putting a chair around his arm. So he gets pulled off of Cardona, right? And no one in the ring, there's 20 people there. No one thinks to get Cardona out of Dodge, take the chair off his arm, or stand in front of Orton. In fact, if you watch this back, there's a whole pathway between Orton and Cardona, and all of these people trying to stop him are basically on either side of his body. So Orton has this clear path, and he just stomps on the chair, and Cardona sells the arm. Fans chant one more time for the deranged heel. Cardona's rolling around in the ring. Nick Aldis comes out, and he's pretty calm. He's telling Orton, yo, you're not acting like yourself, which is a chill reaction compared to Aldis every time McIntyre does anything, including stuff half as violent as this. Aldis treated Orton like he said a bad word on TV, whereas his head pops off when McIntyre hits his finishing move at the wrong time. The ending I just described, with the officials not properly restraining Orton, making the finish so blatant, that seriously bothered me. Nothing to get hung up about, but we're always honest and specific with our criticisms and praise here. The rest of this was extremely well done. Orton brutalizing Cardona's personality and character, feigning second thoughts when confronted by Jelly Jam, extending the mystery of the person on the other end of the phone call, and then brutalizing Cardona after a fake apology to close the show. All of that worked. Jelly Roll is way better than he has any right to be cutting promos like this. But I did laugh, though, when Randy replied, Jelly, what am I supposed to do? As if that's a normal way to address a human man. Like, that's what you'd say to a pet. You call a little dog Jelly. You don't call, however big he is now, 250-pound man, Jelly. But this worked so well because we have seen Orton come around as a person in reality and as a character on screen the last few years. So playing into all of that, yet still flipping it at the end, was pretty strong. It's still hysterical to hear fans being all in for this guy who's acting like a dirtbag. But again, that's how it goes. And as we just said, I don't know what WWE can do at this point to get Orton booed. Maybe it's kicking a kid, pushing a child down. Maybe it's insulting a woman. Like, that is what they have gotten to if they want to salvage him in a pure heel role who gets booed. And maybe Cody can go out there and cut one of those promos, like I said, before WrestleMania last year. But even then, I don't see this guy getting cheered. And one additional positive, this also writes off Cardona through WrestleMania. There's no spot for him on the card, really. He can come back. Maybe when he comes back, he has a little bit of edge, because this character that he's been doing on TV recently, it's been pretty bland and pretty one note. And we know what the guy was able to accomplish on the indies. So maybe this is for the better for Cardona at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, and I think Cardona's like done a pretty good job since he's come back and has been good in these bits and pieces segments here. But he's been the I'm happy to be back character.
Exactly. And that
Now
doesn't work.
now let's move on to something else, which we know he's able to do because he's creative. I agree with you on the reaction to the Randy stuff too, because like commentary and everyone's like losing their mind, saying Orton's lost his mind and all this stuff. He's just doing normal wrestling stuff. It's not even the most violent thing going on this show. So
I mean, a concerto last week and then snapping a guy's arm in a chair. That's not normal wrestling stuff.
That's true. But on this, until he had stomped on the arm,
sure,
with Cardona, he'd just been putting him through a table or whatever. I was like, that's kind of normal stuff. But this was good. You don't have Cody, which was good. You had to not have Cody on the show if you were going to do what you did last week. Again, I don't love that going into Mania right now, but if you're going to do it, you have to stick with it. They stuck with that. So that all worked. I think in terms of like getting Orton booed, the only other thing I can think of, and it is a credit to John Cena last year, that he basically stopped doing all the things fans would cheer. No more flashing lights and colors for the entrance. He wouldn't do his catchphrases and stuff as much. And that helped buy into the fact that Cena didn't like the fans as much as we didn't care for that story itself. Orton is still doing everything that's going to get him cheered. And he's leaning into it too. And so that's where it's like, you have a lot of people, no one's like fully doing classic heel stuff, but it is what it is. Randy's going to get cheered. People are going to like it. And, but he's doing a good job of what he's doing.
What was the last thing you said? The very last thing.
Doing a good job. He's going to keep getting cheered.
Oh, yeah. Okay. There was also a tremendous visual late in this show during this segment of Orton being held back in the ring. He has his RKO Everybody shirt on, and someone in the crowd directly above his head held up a sign that said, "09 Orton has entered the chat." It could not have been framed any better if they planned it.
Yes, but like that's only going to keep getting him cheered. And I think they included some of that in the social media reaction to what Randy did. They're leaning into the nostalgia of Randy Orton.
Absolutely.
And the old Orton, which again is just going to get him cheered. I do love the idea too that 2009 Randy Orton is a thing. Like, 2017 Steph Curry or whatever that is, or when you play the video games and you've got all-time teams or players from certain years, and Orton's got 09 Orton, so that's a pretty good bet.
Well, what's funny is a few years ago, I think it was, I may be getting the year wrong, but I think people were talking about like 07 Kane. There was a whole like run on social media that went viral of like that singular year in Kane's run that he was just like completely dominant on like SmackDown and ECW and stuff. So this is, 09 Orton much better than 07 Kane, but still, it's kind of ironic that the next version of that has come up on the road to WrestleMania. And look, WWE, we need to make it clear. They're right to lean into this. You can almost certainly, especially these days, more so than back in the day when people were protesting WWE, you can rehab Cody as a babyface easy enough where you can temporarily sacrifice those reactions to sell a shitload of tickets for WrestleMania. Like, that's pretty much what this is coming down to. Randy Orton being this character, getting cheered, it's hot. It is something people want to see. And if Cody gets booed for 1 month or maybe even 2 months, I believe they're confident enough in their creative, his promo ability, the character work that he's capable of doing to know that they can get Cody cheered eventually on the back end, even if that means him working outside of the main event for a while and doing things that, get him back into that state, because you can't sacrifice in this case, the short term for the long term. WWE needs WrestleMania to do well. And because Cody has proven time and again in this company that he can flip stuff on its head, which he was not able to do at the end of his run in AEW, I think it's a risk worth taking, and they don't need to do the things we're talking about. They don't need to have Orton punt a kid or, insult women or do any of those things, they can kind of just sit on this for the next 30, 60 days and let it go. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, day after Mania put Cody in the ring with Dominic Mysterio and Cody's getting cheered again. Like it is sort of opponent specific.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to cheer John Cena on his last run. People want to cheer Randy Orton because he was a face and because this is probably his last main event run. But you get Cody back with somebody else and he'll win them on their side. But you start chipping away a bit. It gets a little bit harder every time to do it, I think.
It gets dicey. There's no question. But you can look even on these shows, not this week, but Randy's been getting cheered over Cody. Cody in the backstage segment with Sami Zayn, Cody's getting cheered over Sami. Zayn is getting booed against him. So it is circumstantial to a degree, but still, it's your main event night one of WrestleMania. You kind of want the guys aligned the way that you saw that happening. And right now it doesn't seem to be going in that direction. On Raw Monday night, WWE announced that Cody Rhodes' first interview since the attack will be on the Pat McAfee show this Wednesday. Vintage, I'm of a mixed mind about this. On one hand, I love that it potentially means Cody won't be on SmackDown in consecutive weeks. He needs to sell that concerto. I keep getting messed up a little bit when I try to say that. I'm trying to make it a thing, but it's not natural to say.
It sounds like you're slurring your words when you got to say it.
Instead of concerto, yeah, it's pretty much the same concept of that. So I simultaneously like that he's going to be doing this because he can be at home, maybe have a black eye, a bandage around his head, sell some dizziness, whatever the case, and do it off screen without having to travel. Get some content from Cody. Ideally, he won't be on SmackDown this week either. You really need to sell this. On the other hand, it's a little annoying that they're going to be putting that content midweek, midday on ESPN rather than on one of their shows that's being watched by the majority of their fans on the road to WrestleMania. That said, they obviously can replay clips of it on Friday night.
Well, and we also had the conversation like 2 weeks ago about Pat McAfee and WWE kind of taking a break from each other of some kind. And now we're right back.
That's just him on the product. He said that he was still going to be a place for superstars and interviews, and they're not looking. Yeah. And by the way, they're still in a relationship with ESPN too, so that's not going away.
That too. That's a good point. I personally don't like it because I'd like everything to be contained to the shows because if there's so much content outside of it, it's too much to track. But business-wise, it makes all the sense in the world for WWE. And I imagine you're going to go a lot longer. This is probably going to be a 10 to 20 minute thing, perhaps, because Pat's got a bunch. You're not going to run that whole thing on a WWE show. So it works. What are we going to say? Does Cody have a neck brace? Yes or no? I'm imagining the Steve Austin one back in the day. Do we think Cody has a neck brace on?
I say no to a neck brace because to me it was more of a concussion type of thing. Mm-hmm. He didn't get dropped on his neck. He didn't take a pile driver like he did against Kevin Owens.
Yeah, I guess he kind of did that with Kevin Owens already.
So I would say no in that respect.
I just love neck braces. Just classic pro wrestling injured trope. Even when it doesn't make sense, like JBL wearing it with the cowboy hat on top of the sticks or whatever. I would love Cody to lean into it.
What do you think? Place. What do you think about Cody's in his home in Atlanta? He's doing this interview, and they run a home invasion angle. Like, could that get Orton booed?
Ooh,
if he goes, scares Brandy. He scares the shit out of Brandy while he's beating the crap out of Cody on screen.
And we know one of the best Randy Orton things from back in the day was the John Cena home invasion.
Yeah.
And he punted Cena's dad later on. Maybe we get that.
They also flipped it the other way too, with Triple H invading Randy's home. Remember he walked in with the sledgehammer. He did the whole thing.
Yes.
By the way, that was 17 years ago. I think this month.
Was that 09 Orton?
That would have been. What year that was.
But
that would have been by math. Yeah, math tells me that would be 09 Orton. Yeah.
Can you imagine the talk of the Pat McAfee show live airing a home invasion and everything that goes along with that?
Or maybe it happens, it gets cut off, but they save the footage for SmackDown.
Maybe. I like that idea. That would certainly be a lot more interesting.
That would be
Maybe
interesting.
we do go that path. I like where your head's at. Now I'm going to be disappointed if
I
we
know.
don't get it.
I hate when I bring stuff like that up or when you do.
And if we do a home invasion, the one other thing we need to do is Randy Orton peeking in the kids' room or looking at the door of the children. That's a classic pro wrestling home invasion thing.
I'd rather him go after Pharaoh, honestly. You want to talk about getting heat? Go after Pharaoh.
Yeah.
That's how you get heat.
Steal the dog.
Take him. Oh my God. Abduct Pharaoh. Holy crap. That would be absolutely insane.
Do it. Lean into it. Lean into it.
All right. Let's move over to Monday Night Raw because a ton happened on this show. The vast majority of it involving in one way or another Paul Heyman, ironically. And it just, I don't know. It was all connected with each other in one way or another. So this is going to be an extended second half of the main event. Brock Lesnar opened the show wearing a pretty sick and simple FAF5 t-shirt, which if you want a Lesnar shirt in 2026, and I don't know how many of you do, but if you do, it's probably the best you're going to get. It doesn't even have his name on it. And you can hit the link in our social media profiles at Getting Overcast. You can buy it directly from WWE and support the show simultaneously. We get a 10% cut. You can still use all your coupon codes. Again, at Getting Overcast on social media. Find the link. Buy that shirt or any WWE merchandise. We get a cut.
Yeah, it is one of the few like wrestling shirts that doesn't necessarily look like a wrestling shirt other than the WWE logo up at the top of it. But like I saw it and I was like, oh, that's actually like not terrible. And that's kind of rare to see in pro wrestling.
The RKO Everybody shirt that Orton is wearing, I've never had any Orton merchandise. He's not one of my favorites or anything like that. If and when that goes on sale, like maybe Black Friday time or whatever, sometimes they have some decent sales on t-shirts. I could see myself picking that up. It is so plain and simple. It's black and white. People know what RKO is. The blood splatter is pretty cool. I won't get this one, but 10 years ago I might have potentially.
Yeah, and Randy has never had good shirts. This is not bad. Would you get the blood-stained one or the regular one?
I'd get the blood-stained one.
Interesting.
I'd get whichever one was on sale, honestly. I'd get whichever one was cheaper. That's just the truth. Because I don't wear them that much. Sometimes I cut the sleeves off. I wear them around the house, or on the rare occasions I go to a wrestling show that is not a WWE show because I don't wear the concert T-shirt of the band I'm going to go see or anything like that. Especially if we're there in a media role, I'll obviously wear just plain clothes. But I'll wear it to like an indie show or something else. But I so rarely do those things. So if I'm going to get a wrestling shirt, I'm not going to pay $40 for it because I'm not going to get $40 of use out of it. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Paul Heyman was in full advocate mode with Lesnar in the ring, introducing him, excusing Obafemi's dominance last week as being due to first fighting 20 guys, Lesnar, and then getting distracted by Seth Rollins. He focused on Oba being overhyped, claiming he's the latest in a long line of prospects who will try and fail to take down the beast, comparing him to Goldberg, Braun Strowman, Dean Ambrose, which actually got a reaction, Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, and even John Cena. You'll notice he did not mention Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Heyman claimed Femi already peaked with that one powerbomb because Lesnar would victimize and conquer him at WrestleMania. Oba, of course, answered. And I noticed, and they did this last week also, WWE, they've added a delay between his intro and the entrance theme actually hitting. And it really adds foreboding to it. It hits differently and it hits better. So credit to them. We criticize a lot of their entrance changes. The reaction was pure electricity. Absolutely insane pop for a superstar who has barely been on the main roster for 2 months. There were children in the crowd doing his strut, not adults, children.
I told you, it's a TikTok meme. I see it all the time.
It's unbelievable. Lesnar struck first with a kick. He attempted an F5. Femi easily escaped, clotheslined him out of the ring, and barked in his direction as Brock laid against the barricade, completely stunned and shook. Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks. Lesnar's selling was incredible. He didn't even use the top rope to go over, which you are supposed to do for safety reasons. He flung his body out of the ring with reckless abandon and looked like he had seen a ghost for the second straight week. The confidence is gone. This segment was exactly what it needed to be. Nothing more, nothing less. As I said last week, at some point, Lesnar is going to need at least one, if not two, big moments over Femi as this road comes to an end. Similar to this, but flipped. A little less dominant, perhaps. we're also going to need to hear from Oba at some point. It doesn't have to be a long soliloquy or anything like that. Just got to put a little bit of character behind the man that we're seeing. Need to know a little something about his focus and motivations and all that. But this was about as perfect a follow-up as WWE could have done with so much time remaining before WrestleMania. I loved that it opened the show too. Oba is the closest thing WWE has had to Lesnar since Lesnar debuted. They need to fully capitalize on this and just strap the rocket to the guy. I said this last week, wins King of the Ring, wins the championship at SummerSlam. You got to give it all to him. This is going to open one of these 2 nights of WrestleMania. I'm almost positive about it. You will see this for free on ESPN. That's how big it is. You can bet on it.
Yeah, this was really, really good. Yes, we do need Brock to get the upper hand at one point. We do need promo from Oba. As I've said since he came up to the main roster, we need to kind of tell his story a little bit. Like, he just had those vignettes about how he's changed or whatever. Mm-hmm. But as we know, he's got an incredible story.
Incredible story.
We'll get to that. We have time to get it. Brock, I believe, is supposed to be on every Raw until Mania, right? Mm-hmm. So we got time. No worries on that. I thought the real star of this was Paul Heyman. This was awesome. Heyman back in his real element. He never quite fit naturally with the vision. Everything about Seth didn't quite feel real because just it was a kind of pro wrestling type of angle. Mm-hmm. And with Roman, he was the back seat to Roman as the wise man. But he was back in advocate mode here, and he was electric. He was energetic. Mm-hmm. He could call out people, make comments that make people go, ooh. And I was like, man, this is a Heyman. We saw this Paul Heyman at his Hall of Fame speech at WrestleMania 40, but we hadn't been back to this Heyman in a while. And it was like, man, this is why Heyman was so good for Brock back in the day.
And spoiler alert, this is the Heyman we got all Monday night, not just in this segment. You got this guy 3 different times on Monday.
Yeah, so it was really cool to be, all right, this is the Paul Heyman from kind of back in the day, and that got me as excited as everything else. So he was great here. Last thing to mention on this, I texted you this too. The graphic for this match, Brock Lesnar. You talked about it, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, about the photoshopping or whatever's going on in the graphics. They give Oba a full-on six-pack in this graphic.
He ain't got a six-pack.
This is not meant to be an insult, but he does not have a six-pack. And it's okay that he doesn't have a six-pack. He's an incredibly fit, powerful, incredible-looking dude. But the six-pack looks so fake on the graphic.
He is in better shape than I ever will be in my entire life and ever have been in my life to this point, okay? But Oba Femi is not cut like that. He's just not. He has more.
No wrestler is really, other than like John
Finn Balor. Finn Balor's cut like that.
Finn Balor.
There's a few people who definitely are, but especially a man his size, and even Brock Lesnar at his peak, performance enhanced out, and whatever he was doing, he wasn't cut like that. You could see it. You had more definition, but you didn't have that. Oba is barrel chested in the bottom part, and he's got some stuff going on top on the chest plate. He is not cut from granite like that, as much as WWE may wish that he is, and as much as Oba might even wish that he is. He's not. As far as I can tell, he's completely natural. He does everything the right way. It's okay to accentuate stuff a little bit on graphics. You want to give the lines on the side of the abs, okay, you can make that work. But giving this guy a full-on six-pack, which is just not reality, it just looks weird. Forget the fact that it's inaccurate. It looks bad.
I think it then looks bad when he's out there and doesn't have it.
Totally.
Because then you're suddenly comparing it. Show the actual Oba Femi, who is fearsome and incredible and impressive. Just go with that.
Again, I'm not saying not to enhance it. Enhance it a little bit, but make it realistic. If you're going to do that, it's fine. Now, in terms of what I mentioned about giving Femi a chance to speak and assert his dominance, WWE did actually publish something like that on social media. So I want to use this as an example of what I'm talking about.
Is here. The one that beats the one is here. Nobody can stop me. There's nobody like me. No man on earth can touch me.
That's all it needs to be. And that line the one that beats the one. That is fire. Holy crap. That is a great effing line. It's a great tag for Obafemi as well. But this is what I was talking about. Don't hide this off screen. It is tough to argue that WWE is doing anything wrong with its booking at this juncture with these two guys. But if what I just showed you was Femi walking to the back on camera and you saw him go through gorilla position and do that, holy crap, would that have hit on Monday night?
Yes. And that reminds me, the one. Heyman bringing up the Undertaker streak and that's still getting booed again proves that it was the right decision to make at WrestleMania 30.
100%. The Usos fought The Vision in a non-title match. Logan Paul's beef with Tom Brady and footage of them in that flag football game was covered before the bell, and he got major heat during the commercial break. Austin Theory used a removed top turnbuckle as a distraction, throwing it at Jay before hitting a running blockbuster. Jay caught him with a spear coming back, only for Theory to grab the referee as he attempted an Uso splash. Logan dropped Jay gut first onto the exposed turnbuckle, ran Jimmy into the ring post, but when he grabbed the brass knuckles out of his pants, LA Knight came in, threw him into the other post, and then slid the knucks to Jay, who knocked Theory out cold with a haymaker in clear view of the referee. The referee saw the knucks. Jay knew the referee saw the knucks. He did it anyway. They got the disqualification. Commentary sold this as Jay being overzealous, and while Jimmy and LA were perturbed that he did this and lost the match, they weren't exactly angry at him. When the Vision were announced as the winners, Jay ran in and then hit a haymaker on Logan just for good measure. Knight and the Usos continued discussing this backstage, with LA pointing out how Jay has been talking a lot like Roman recently. Jimmy again played mediator, telling Knight not to make the same mistake as Punk and to watch himself when speaking about the family. And this all happened with a picture of The Rock on WWE's equipment bus firmly in view between their bodies as they were all commiserating backstage.
To beat the champion, to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
Actually, Bex, this made a little more sense than most of them. It was a decently inventive way to get the necessary decision, the Vision winning, without pinning the champions. And not only that, it developed some of Jay's character in the process, building off his reaction to Punk, how he interacted with Knight last week. And this actually played into something that happened later in the show too. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying I preferred this to a match with a clean finish, but given the whole beat the champion in a non-title match deal has been overdone, especially by heels, I didn't mind this as much as I normally would. Plus, the action that we got between these guys was solid. I thought the match was too short on the other side of the commercial, but my guess is they didn't want to give away too much because they will be fighting for the title next week.
Well, yeah, Cole says at the beginning of this, hey, if the Vision win, they've got a pretty good case to get a title shot. And then Graves comes in with, yeah, no, of course they do. You beat the champ. You better get a title shot. So it's like, thank you for saying that, Corey. And I sort of liked the just kind of in-your-faceness about the finish. Like, we get so many brass knuckles, didn't see it, did see it, whatever. The idea that someone just decides to do it in front of the ref and gets disqualified, like, you need that to happen sometimes. So then when you hide it, it means something that you try to hide it. And it continues with the character of Jay and some other things Jimmy and Jay say later on. But I came out of this whole segment in the backstage thing thinking we're going to get Jey Uso LA Knight singles match at WrestleMania. As we were trying to figure out what do you do with LA Knight, that might be the thing where you've got LA Knight versus a former world champion. You know, we fought AJ Styles a couple years ago. That might be where we go right now.
You want to talk about being overzealous? You got vintage Chris Vanini over here jumping the gun on the point the Silver King was going to make in the next segment. So let's go ahead and get to that. Later backstage, Heyman demanded Adam Pearce set up a street fight for the tag team titles at Madison Square Garden. Pearce said he would consider it, which initially led Heyman to snap at him, but he calmed down only to be told he needed to head to the ring because his contractually scheduled time with Seth Rollins was next. Now, before we get to that, I'm going to say what Chris just said. I want to state what I see as the potential for a title change next week. The street fight stipulation especially opens this door, Chris. You and I have expected to different degrees Usos' Vision at WrestleMania ever since the titles flipped. But here's a note. Naomi is going to be more than 8 months pregnant around Mania. And after Monday night, to what you just said, it really does feel like WWE is developing this Jay-LA feud with Jay reverting back to the unhinged right-hand man character that he was in the Bloodline. He is no longer main event Jey Uso. That is not the guy we're seeing on TV right now. They could do a singles match. The only question I have, if that happens, and I am leaning the exact same way that you are, is what the hell do you do with the Vision? Because I cannot imagine Logan Paul being left off WrestleMania, and there is no other tag team on this brand legitimized enough to challenge them for the titles on that show.
Well, first on the Jey Uso part, I forgot to mention this previously, but they again came out to the tag team championship match with Jay's theme and not the Usos theme. I guess I guess they tried the Usos theme. People weren't yeeting and they want people yeeting. So we're going back to Jay. It's annoying.
It's so annoying.
Because the song says it's just me.
It's so stupid.
In the song, but whatever. Maybe Jay it'll be just Jay who's pretty soon here.
Mm-hmm.
On the Logan front, Logan will be on WrestleMania. You could find something to do with the tag team match, or maybe he's in a bigger face-to-face with Tom Brady type of thing as well. If you're going to put the titles on them, I would like to have a match at WrestleMania. But yeah, Logan is going to be on WrestleMania, whether it's a match or whether it's a Tom Brady something, which, it's in Vegas. It comes off of the flag football thing. Like, Logan's going to be there. But it goes to show how weak the tag team division is and how my New Year's resolution to fix tag team wrestling in both WWE and AEW is slowly moving along. It's getting better on SmackDown. We'll get to that. But it continues to be nothing on Raw.
Yeah, it's absolutely nothing. I have a inkling of where it might be going, but talk about that a little bit later.
What if we do Vision versus the Wyatt 6 and we can get the belts back on Wyatt's?
What if we do the Vision against the other champions on SmackDown right now?
Would you unify the belts again? Do you think
precisely what I'm thinking?
Do you think they're saying, look, we did 2 tag belts, we can't even make 1 tag division, let alone 2?
Here's the thing. If they're going all in with the women, which they are, credit to them for the first time ever. It's the best it's ever been booked from a consistency standpoint. Then you do have 2 tag team divisions. They're just one for the men and one for the women. Why do the men need 2 if you don't have time to feature them on either show, let alone both shows?
Yeah,
That's how you do it, man. That's the match you book.
In principle, I would hate it because you have a 3-hour show and a 2.5-hour show. You should be able to book 2 tag team divisions. But if you've proven you can't with the men, you can't do 2. And if you think you have found the recipe for success with the women's tag and you can do that with the men, then okay, then maybe we give them a chance at that. I wouldn't hate it.
As I mentioned, Heyman was all over this show. He reemerged later, annoyed that he's out in the ring alone without anyone to have his back against Rollins. Braun Breaker and Braun Strowman, they're out for the foreseeable future. Lesnar is inconsolable after what happened with Femi, and the Vision are basically unconscious after both taking brass knuckle haymakers to the head. He said WWE isn't big enough for he and Rollins to coexist. And while he knows he cannot compete with Seth in the ring, perhaps manning up is the only option he has left. So Rollins emerged from the crowd, all black, masked out, standing on the announce table as Heyman looked toward the stage. When Rollins revealed himself, 4 Boston police officers appeared below him, with Heyman sporting a shit-eating grin. The cops helped Rollins back through the crowd, saying men and his family are snitches and they file lawsuits. He has a restraining order against him. And then Paul Heyman dropped this line.
I told you I was going to settle this with you like a man. Men in my family are snitches. We file restraining orders with the courts. We file lawsuits. You're within 50 feet of me. Violation of a restraining order is a felony. You are going to jail. You are going to prison. And when you go to prison, because you're a felon, your wife will divorce you. And when she divorces you, and she's married to half of the locker room, someone is going to call Child Protective Services for your daughter. But don't worry, I, Paul Heyman, will adopt your daughter so she doesn't go through life knowing that her father... off. Rollins is hurt enough. And now, Heyman, no! Rollins striking Heyman.
That is so unhinged. You're going to prison. Your wife will divorce you. She's going to become a whore for the locker room. Your child is going to get taken away, and I'm going to adopt her. Like, holy shit, who even comes up with that? And then it somehow gets even better visually because Rollins evades the cops. You heard this at the end. All Heyman could do, he sees this guy barreling towards him. He takes the microphone, throws it at him half a second before taking a forearm to the face and going down like a ton of bricks. Heyman laughed as Rollins got cuffed and brought out of the arena. Pierce followed him. I laughed because this was absolutely insane. And I didn't even bother waiting until after the show. I rewound this shit immediately and laughed even harder watching it back. And yet, Chris, I'm a little bit mixed on this, okay? On one hand, it was pretty illogical, no? Wouldn't WWE, given it's a shared workplace, be made aware of a restraining order between two employees? Wouldn't Rollins know? Wouldn't Boston cops hesitate to help a tried and true New Yorker who, by the way, was literally wearing pinstripes and a New York Yankees tie as this was happening? Yes, I did catch that. And wouldn't it have been way more effective if the restraining order had been established ahead of time early in the show so Heyman could go off like he did, feeling invincible? Rollins' attack would have hit a lot harder if the restraining order was a known quantity. Then perhaps he could have attacked in the mask, gotten the mask taken off, and arrested. And also, I know last week I said it was pretty brilliant to have Lesnar brawl and eliminate all the other masked men clearing the deck. It was smart. But wouldn't this have been the perfect time for the masked men to appear, confuse the cops, and get Rollins out of Dodge? That would have been the most effective use of the gimmick to date. Now, on the other hand, somewhat ironically, this delivered 1 week later on my ask for police presence involved in a feud. And WWE does need to find as many ways as possible to extend this storyline until they can make a final decision on Breaker's availability. And I certainly cannot deny the truly excellent promo on both ends of this segment from Heyman and how they absolutely nailed this entire deal from an entertainment standpoint. Heyman crushed promos twice on Monday night. He had a couple rough outings before this. I just struggled to separate what I loved so much from this segment from the lacking approach when additional thought and planning would have made this absolute perfection. It was still like an 8.5, 9 out of 10, but it could have been a 10 out of 10, no notes, perfect segment.
Police presence. LAPD, Chris Paul trying to beat me up. So Paul Heyman saved it because he's Paul Heyman. I was sports entertained by this. Like, every single one of those lines is like the devastating line you get in a typical wrestling promo. He just put them all in one. Like, you can't get any more than that. I was confused at the beginning. It's not that, wait a minute, restraining order doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. It was more like, wait a minute, you're revealing the restraining order and the arrest all in one bit. Like you said, it should have been a restraining order, then Seth is getting around it, and then he gets arrested or something. Like there was a process to it. It felt like they came up with restraining order like a couple of days ago.
They could have last week when Heyman was being all disheveled and stuff. He could have stopped at a certain point, said, "I can't get any closer to you, Seth, because I filed a restraining order against you." And then FAF5, and then Brock Lesnar comes out. You do the whole, like, they just had to include a singular line, or he could have said it at the beginning of this show, or in the backstage segment with Adam Pearce, he could have said, "Why do you have me in the ring with him? I have a restraining order against him. Don't you know that?" So on and so forth. So many ways they could have done it.
Yeah, and I guess, RIP to the Putty Patrol. I enjoyed them for a couple of weeks, even if you very much didn't. But you're right. This would have been the use for them, that he is evading arrest because of the Putty Patrol. But I guess we are done with that. And look, Paul Heyman made it entertaining. And I also wondered, as Seth is getting handcuffed and taken away and kind of laughing and smiling, do you think every pro wrestler wants their, like, Stone Cold Steve Austin gets arrested moment.
Absolutely. Yes.
Like, that's such an iconic one. Every single time it happens, they're thinking, I got to make this look good like Stone Cold did back in the day. Like, that's the gold standard. And
forget wrestling. Think about Superbad, the movie, the Jonah Hill movie. When McLovin gets taken out of the party in cuffs, right? He's doing it because it looks cool as shit, and all the girls remember him, and now they want to jump on McLovin's bones. It's the same concept.
Yes.
I want that moment. I don't want to actually get arrested, but I would love if I could kayfabe a situation like that, and and look like an absolute badass. Calling cops pigs, spitting on them. That'd be amazing. Everyone wants that.
Well, I mean, we don't. I just. We can go that far, but I just meant in the context of pro wrestling.
I'm just saying it works in many different levels. Is all I'm saying.
I'm sure. Like, I always think they're thinking of Stone Cold, and like we gotta get the right camera angles, and we got to do the Stone Cold of it all. But
look, it happened to his wife, right? 7 years ago. So Becky got the moment. He got the moment. It's pretty cool that they were able to do that. It's not the feud I expected it to happen in, but it still worked. And I just want to take one small issue with what you said. You said like Heyman saved the segment. Heyman was the segment. He didn't save anything. He was the entire deal. His promo at the start was great. Rollins coming up, the logic of it was messed up as I explained, but none of it really mattered that much outside of like our criticisms on the show, because the product they gave us on TV, the segment, was executed in a way that you couldn't help but love what Heyman said, how Rollins reacted, and then the way he got arrested at the end. I have no idea where they're going to go with this. I don't know the drop dead date for them to decide whether Breakker can get cleared and wrestle on this show. It is going to be immensely interesting. Let's just put it that way.
If he can't, I don't even know what you do.
I have no idea.
And I have to imagine they think he will. Otherwise, why would you have brought Seth back?
They were of the belief when Breakker went in for the hernia surgery that the timeline would allow him to wrestle on the show.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you can do if he's not 100% cleared is you can have him do something to Rollins, take him out, and maybe even do that at WrestleMania. So it's a big moment on the show, but they're not wrestling a full match. And then you run that match at Backlash. And I don't want to call it a main event because it would be a non-title, but that'd be a huge match for the equivalent of a B-level pay-per-view or premium live event. So they got a lot of options, but I think Breakker's going to get cleared. They'll wind up wrestling. I mean, it's the biggest show of the year. If you're close, you usually, I hate to say it because you're talking about someone's health, but you usually pull the trigger on something like that.
Well, and I think Heyman saying all these guys are out for a while is a bit of a misdirection.
It's a red herring, yeah. Moving on to the main event of Raw, which concludes this segment. CM Punk entered last, receiving a warning from Jimmy Uso in gorilla position that he should watch himself because Jay has been unhinged of late. Punk reiterated this happening at the start of his promo, basically saying it's pathetic that no one in the entire Anoa'i family can stand on their own. They always need backup of some kind. And yet, Roman Reigns told Samoans last week it was free reign on Punk outside of WrestleMania weekend, yet none of them have come for him over the last 7 days. Punk said he talks shit because that is the business he's chosen.
This is the business we've chosen.
But he's tired of talking. He admitted that being called old pissed him off, not because that bothers him, but because it was Roman, his young boy, disrespecting him. So Punk asked Boston if he's old. And the fans were kind of split. Some booed for no, others chanted yes. Punk admitted that he is old, but he said he's not ashamed of it. He's proud of his age. If he was ashamed, he would dye his beer like Reigns. That got a pop. Punk said he's middle-aged and crazy like Terry Funk, the same age as Nolan Ryan when he was still throwing no-hitters. He also shouted out Gordie Howe because remember, he loves sports. Punk said he feels increased pressure with age, but it only makes him better. He also mocked Roman's acknowledge me, saying he doesn't need it. He's already the best in the world. Punk said Reigns only seeing an old man means he's already lost, considering he knocked him down with one punch last week, and at WrestleMania, he'll wrestle him into knots. Punk added that Reigns covers himself in oil and jizz.
PG, brother.
Random as hell, saying he's not an old man. Punk is the old man. When Punk reminded that neither Gunther nor Jay disrespected him, yet they couldn't get the job done, Jay entered, with Punk continuing to run him down while the music played. Jay was fine with talking over throwing hands, going off about Punk running his mouth about the family and him specifically. Punk was ready to put the title on the line and actually fight Jay for it. When Jimmy came out to confront his brother, telling Jay that every time he sees red, he hurts himself, he hurts the family. Jimmy blamed Jay for getting their titles on the line next week, to which Jay said he didn't care about that right now. He continued ranting. He even said shit, wondering why Roman wasn't out there to handle his own business. So, of course, Reigns entered. His beard dyed just a bit. Like Punk said, I presume to sell the promo. It had a lot more gray last week, but it wasn't as dark as it used to be. Punk put his hands behind his own back, sticking his chin out at Reigns, daring him to punch him. Roman told Jimmy, since the Usos already wrestled respectfully, he needed to get Jay and leave the ring. Punk remarked that they should stay because Reigns needed all the help he can get. So Jay lost his cool, attacked Punk, and took a shot to the head before Reigns broke it up with a Superman rabbit punch to the back of Punk's head. Officials ran out to separate all four guys, but Jay screamed at Roman, calling him Joe, yelling he knows what he needs to do. He's got to smash him. So Reigns turned around, completely snapped, speared Punk to hell, twice ran him into the ring post, and powerbombed him clean as hell through the announce table. Then he grabbed Punk by his hoodie, screamed at him, and stalked him like a lion, morphing back into the tribal chief as Punk laughed while rolling around in pain, telling officials he's not the one who needs help. This was straight fire, man. Basically no notes. You saw the two main eventers for WrestleMania completely morph back into their classic personas, particularly Punk, who was on an absolute tear talking shit about the family, explaining why he snapped last week. I had no issue with the old comment last week, but for those who did, this should have been seen as a satisfactory explanation. As was the case with The Rock 2 years ago, WWE has to a lesser extent loosened up the language restrictions for this feud. The talent isn't going overboard, but being able to say a couple additional words, it's added a more realistic feel to the build. Just being able to say shit and asshole helps. I did not think we'd get jizz as part of that. Jay is never what you would call composed on the mic, especially when he's wild like this, but he is doing a tremendous job acting unhinged. This segment reached a point that I legitimately wondered, like, did I get his schedule wrong and Roman's not going to be out here and the Usos are standing in again? He was advertised for the show, but I just was like, they are doing such great work together, Jay and Jimmy and Punk. Like, they didn't even need Roman in that segment, I thought at the time. The role reversal of Jay gassing up Roman to go nuts instead of the inverse, that was a long time coming. Reigns' spear was one of the best he's delivered in years. He cut Punk in half. The powerbomb was hard as hell. It was the perfect exclamation point going back to their origin with the Shield. And Punk capping the show by writhing around, laughing, basically doing the whole call an ambulance, but not for me deal. It's exactly what he's been building to this entire time. Punk's goal has been for Reigns to lose his cool. That way he's exposed and off his game for their match. He has always been a master manipulator. Here he got exactly what he wanted. He proved himself right as per usual. He lost the battle, but he's aiming to win the war. It makes it far more realistic if Punk somehow retains when all is said and done. I'm not going to call it a perfect segment, but there was one tiny flaw. We'll talk about it in a moment. This was damn close to perfect. All four guys kicked ass. And yeah, I thought I had something else to say, but that's pretty much it.
You said no notes, and then you had a lot of notes.
Those are all positive. No, those are all positive things. When I say notes, I mean really criticisms. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. This was really good. Punk's pro sports lines continue to get zero reaction from the crowd. Nobody really reacted for Nolan Ryan. Nobody reacted for Gordie Howe.
People in the crowd, like, I hate to say it, dude, because he's a legend. Both of them are. But people in the crowd these days, they don't know who Nolan Ryan is. A hockey town like Boston should have popped more for Gordie Howe, but still.
Yeah, it's just it ain't gonna work. But he keeps trying. I liked the idea of Punk leaning into the old man thing, and frankly, I was thinking back to comic books. I was thinking like Old Man Logan, the comic, which kind of got twisted into becoming the Logan movie, which for my money is one of the 3 greatest superhero movies of all time. I like the idea of Punk leaning into that as his gimmick, and he can still do it. That all worked. And the rest of it, everybody that comes out and does everything, it's all good. I just didn't again like Punk like smiling and laughing at the end of it. Mm-hmm. I know we talked about it last week. We don't need to rehash the whole conversation, but I still don't love the in your head thing. And frankly, I think pulling out the tribal chief of Roman is a bad idea from Punk. But, you know, we live in this is ultimately, it comes down to fighting, and the idea that you want somebody to punch you and do stuff to you is like, I don't know, it doesn't quite seem to fit. And it also, to me, isn't selling like the viciousness of Roman. Like, if Punk is just laughing every time Roman hits him, then what Roman does is not really mattering. And I don't.
He's not laughing about being hurt, though. He's laughing about getting under his skin.
Yeah, I know, but I'd rather him sell what Roman did to him.
He did.
Like, oh man,
he was
like,
in pain.
Punk,
He was writhing around there.
Yeah, yes, but he was laughing about it. That's not selling it as much as opposed to him just being completely knocked out and Roman walking away like on top of him or something like that.
But the story hold on, I'm sorry, I got to interrupt you. But the story they're trying to tell is that Punk has manipulated.
The story they're trying to tell. I just don't.
If he just gets knocked out, then there's no manipulation part of it. It's just like, oh, Reigns got over on him.
It's about who's going to win the fight, because that's what this is about.
But that's how that's his methodology of trying to win the fight. He knows that athletically he can't beat this guy, so he's trying.
It's like there's too many stories going on. They're doing the "I'm in your head," the "you're old," the "you stunted my career back in the day on your friend's podcast." It's like there's like almost too many things going on. Where now that we're less than a month away, let's like narrow it down to a couple of things.
Okay, I do agree that over the final 2 weeks they need to narrow it down. I'm sorry, I did not realize you had a lot more to say. I do agree with that. But to this point, they have such a deep history and mythology that has not really been explored. And Chris, we criticized them when they did this feud last year and then the War Games part as well for not getting into their deep shared history. They are saving it for their one-on-one main event match at WrestleMania. So this is the time to do it. And when you have 7 weeks, utilizing some of it, for me, that's what you need to do. But
I'm getting in your head is not part of their shared history. That's another thing they've added on.
Okay, but it is his game plan and strategy. And for a guy like Punk, who is at such a disadvantage physically, you kind of have to show that.
At the beginning of the show, when I said it was more of a holding pattern, that's part of why. Because when they finished the last episode with the old comment, and Punk here start talking about being old, I thought we were going to get into, can Punk actually do this against a guy who's 7 years younger than him and is bigger and stronger and faster? Like, I thought that's where we were going. Instead, we just went back to "I'm in your head," so it didn't really advance anything. It was good. Like, again, it's just it didn't take it a step forward, I thought.
That's fine. And look, there's 3 more of these, so they should narrow. Hopefully, they've also said most of what they need to say. There can only be so much left, so much meat on the bone. I'm sure we're gonna get it. I did find it funny, by the way. They promoted this as CM Punk, Roman Reigns under one roof. They were under one roof last week. So is next week going to be face to face and then head to head and then contract signing? Like, is each one going to get a moniker like that? I just thought that was very funny. I mentioned a moment ago that there was an imperfection here. It's minor. You caught it. I don't know if you noticed that you caught it, but Jimmy did not react properly to Jay casting aside their tag team titles as something that he doesn't care about. Jimmy should have at least given Jay a head turn and expressed some anger. What the hell are you talking about? You don't care about these titles. Something like that. Again, it was minor, but they can address it maybe before the title match next week in a backstage segment. The Usos losing the titles, Jimmy being mad at Jay and leaving the company to be with Naomi, obviously in reality. And then Jay gets criticized by LA for becoming precisely the right-hand man he claimed he was not morphing into. To what you were talking about earlier, that is exactly how you set up the WrestleMania feud. Like you after the show, I am firmly of the belief that is happening. Title change on Monday, Jay Knight on the big show. When you consider how trim and cut Jay looked, it feels like he knows he's getting ready for a big moment.
And that was a good line, though, from Jay, because it also explained why he was happy to just hit Logan with the brass knucks in front of the ref.
Totally.
Because he doesn't really care.
He doesn't.
So that's why it all fit together really well.
Yeah, he was always willing to tag with Jimmy and go after the titles, but it was always reluctant. He was focused on being world champion. He only did it because he didn't have another option. And Jimmy convinced him, hey man, let's just go get your mind right. Let's be a tag team again. That's the only reason they did it in the first place. But it's pretty crazy that WWE, you'll remember, was in the middle of doing this big character arc with Jay in late 2025. Then they put it on hold for War Games, never got back to it for months. And now they're finally circling back to this version of Jay, and they're actually doing it with 2 or 3 other feuds on the road to WrestleMania. I wonder if it was all purposeful or if it was circumstantial due to injuries and storyline needs, but Jay continuing to show that he's weak-minded, has a hairline trigger, he can easily be manipulated. It works for his character, and for me personally, I'm so happy they're getting away from Yeet Man and all the gimmicks and the fun. Jay as a heel, especially working singles, to me it is far more compelling, especially when you aren't wrestling well enough to deliver on the baby face cheers, if that makes sense.
Well, he is still yeeting with kids in the crowd on the way to the ring. But
this week,
if you're turning heel,
week.
you stop doing that. You start coming out of the tunnel or something like that. And I think if they do lose the titles, you have Jay attack Jimmy like viciously and beat him up to write him off as well. And that'll, again, add more and take his character to that side, which, like you said, we thought we were going there. I don't know. The war games of it all messed up a lot of things back in November, but I'm interested in Jay. He's doing a good job here. And I think you drop the tag team titles, Jay turns on him, and off you go.
I disagree about attacking Jimmy. I don't think that will happen. I think they could have a skirmish. He might push his brother, something to that end, but I don't think they're going to get in a physically violent fight of some kind. I don't know that they're going to be going back to that. Nor do I think they need to, personally.
Well, maybe you run, the Usos have said they want to do the Uso versus Uso match again because it didn't go well at Mania.
Right.
And you got 2 nights of SummerSlam. Like maybe that's a SummerSlam match.
You know what? That's fair too, because if you do write Jimmy off, it gives him enough time to be home through paternity, like the early part of paternity leave, let's call it equivalent. And then he could come back 6 weeks to 2 months before SummerSlam, maybe even shorter. Start getting into it with Jay, and they could do a match on that show. You're right. That is possible. I wouldn't have them get physically violent like that. I think they can be at odds. Jimmy can leave saying, enough with you. I'm done. Enough with this family. Go away. And then he just comes back because something happens and he feels he needs to,
Here's a question. Do we think we're done with the Usos and the CM Punk Roman stuff?
It's going to be really tough to separate them from that at this point.
I mean, if we think they lose next week and potentially something happens, you got to set up, you got to get into Jay LA Knight if we're doing that. And at some point you want it to just be Roman and Punk again.
You do.
Maybe that was it.
And the way they can go away from that, it's pretty simple. Punk has now said on more than one occasion that Reigns can't stand on his own. He needs his family getting his back. So you do a very brief backstage segment of Roman saying from now through WrestleMania, I'm doing this on my own. Punk can't be right about this. The tribal chief needs to stand on, for the tribe or whatever the case. But I did notice, I don't know if you did as well, just mentioning the tribal chief thing. He was not wearing OTC 1 gear. Roman Reigns was out there in brand new merch. I don't know if it said tribal chief. I don't think it had any words on it, but they moved away. Now it may have been on the Titantron. I didn't look. I would guess it still was on the Titantron, but it did feel like a shifting character, both visually and in terms of what Reigns did on screen and the way he snapped and went after Punk and attacked him.
Yeah, he was wearing a jacket that was a little bit weird because it had like the collar was kind of like attached or something.
It was really
like
heavy
that. And it was
and big.
I don't know. I don't think it was a WWE thing. But then when he speared him later and took the jacket off, he was wearing a white Roman Reigns shirt. I didn't see the front of it.
I'm looking at it right now on the website. It's his logo. It's his Roman Reigns logo with him doing the Superman punch in the middle. And the back of the shirt says Roman Reigns with a bunch of stars and some tribal tattoos.
Yeah.
No tribal chief, no OTC, white, black, and gold.
Yeah. Oh, last thing on Roman Reigns. I keep forgetting to say this every week. He needs to go back to the old theme. This newer one that he's been doing since he lost at WrestleMania 40. Basically the babyface.
The older tribal chief
of the theme.
You're saying.
Yes.
The succession
The
theme.
one that Yes, the one that was more organs and vocals.
Completely agree.
Yep. It's not as like that one was impactful. Go back and listen to it. And when that first note hits, it's a different feel. Like he used this one for the special entrance at WrestleMania 40. It was very cool. But the more and more you hear it, the less kind of impactful it was. And he needs to go back to the original one because that one I think was just better.
You're 1,000% correct about that. You use this for WrestleMania and SummerSlam and like big title matches, and that other one should be his main theme. There's no question. I wonder if there was a rights issue or they needed to remix it. Maybe there's a reason that we don't know, a business reason they had to do it, but that theme is superior. There's no question about it.
It feels like they've just done this because this is the babyface one. Like ever since he's come back, since losing at WrestleMania 40, he's basically been a face, and he's been using this one, and the other one was the heel one. But the other one's just a lot better.
Completely agree. All right, Vintage, time for you to get out and jump on a plane, huh?
Yes, sir. They're writing me off for 2 weeks.
We are writing you off, but we will definitely have your input. You're going to be watching the shows, contributing, and we will just figure out the best way to get you involved on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, because this road to WrestleMania is heating up, and it's going to get tight late because you're going to have the Final Four, the Masters the week beforehand. And we got some big names coming on this show as well. WWE superstars joining the Getting Over Wrestling podcast before the road to WrestleMania is out. Vintage, have a safe flight, and it is now up to the Silver King to bring you the rest of the way. But before we get to that, I would be remiss if I did not remind you that these days, whether it is Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, or premium live events on Netflix, the Silver King, Vintage, and Getting Over, we are all in with NordVPN. It is easy to set up, a drastically better viewing experience every night. You get the same high quality streams, except they become commercial-free shows. All you have to do is sign up at nordvpn.com/gettingover, open the app, quick connect to another country like the United Kingdom, open Netflix, and watch the program. That is going to be crucial for WrestleMania 42, especially for those of you who still have YouTube TV. NordVPN also allows you to get around online censorship and surveillance, protect your private data when web browsing, and plus, one account can be used on 10 different devices. To get the best discount, go to nordvpn.com/gettingover. Our link will give you 4 extra free months off the 2-year plan, and there's no risk because Nord has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So improve your WWE viewing, save some money, browse safer online, and get the best discount for the best VPN at nordvpn.com/gettingover. It is great having NordVPN as the official singular sponsor of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As mentioned, there is a ton still to get to from Raw and SmackDown, and we are not wasting another moment. It is time to cover the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Hey, yo. Survey says one more for the good guy. Say hello to the back. Don't sing it. Bring it.
SmackDown opened with Drew McIntyre not only attacking Jacob Fatu in the parking lot, but literally pulling him through the broken windshield of his vehicle and onto the hood. This after the car was involved in a crash, presumably Drew hitting it, creating the attack opportunity. Some punches and headbutts led to visible blood. Again, almost certainly a capsule, given it was bright red. McIntyre, with his hands taped, then stormed out to the ring, reminding that he got screwed by WWE and such. Nick Aldis came out asking McIntyre what he's complaining about, saying he self-sabotages, and he suggested that he's closer to unemployment than WrestleMania. That is rich coming from Aldis, who gave a guy without a contracted rematch a title opportunity, only for McIntyre to lose the title he fought so hard to win. As has long been the case, Drew is in the right here. Anyway, McIntyre responded, saying Aldis' son should be ashamed his father is such a corporate stooge. Fatu then charged the ring looking like Suge Knight, leading to an extended brawl. McIntyre went headfirst into a ring post and steel steps. Fatu got pulled off, only to run from the crowd into the timekeeper's area, leaping over the barricade for a splash through the announce table, knocking McIntyre out cold, and then emoting to end it. Overhead replay, it showed a setup of stairs in the timekeeper's area that unnecessarily ruined some of the coolness factor of what Fatu did in the end there. The brawl later continued backstage, with Fatu driving McIntyre headfirst into a garage door. As the Orton segment ended, the bottom third graphic flashed on screen as a fake out. The Titantron flipped on. That showed McIntyre and Fatu battling atop scaffolding outside of the arena. Aldis and a crew of referees, they ran up. They were screaming for Drew and Jacob, don't do it, don't fall, whatever. They end up plummeting what would have been 20 feet-ish, one would presume, to their deaths, if not for a hidden crash pad. And what works so well about that is so often and you've seen this with WWE steel cage matches, Hell in a Cell, you've seen other promotions too, is when people fall off a structure together, they just like move forward and then move back simultaneously. The reason this was cool is McIntyre was the one knocked down. He grabbed Fatu's shirt and dragged him to hell with him. It made it so much more realistic than otherwise, everything that we've seen so frequently. But this was precisely what needed to happen last week. And it's now clear that we were correct, saying WWE didn't go far enough with McIntyre's Claymore-only attack last week because the Rhodes-Orton main event was already giving us color and brutality, so they saved the true brawl for this week. It would have been better to just roll it Friday and not even bother last week, but okay, fair enough. You all know I'm not a guy who needs to see blood, and I certainly don't need wrestlers to blade outside of certain situations. But WWE, they need to figure out a way to make their blood look more realistic. Maybe darken the color of the capsules, come up with a solution so the contents stay attached to the skin longer. For me, seeing this bright red juice get easily wiped off and not reappear, it kind of ruins the kayfabe of these guys getting busted open. Those are a bunch of notes for me to come around and clarify that I enjoyed this immensely. While I wish these guys were involved in a four-way main event with McIntyre entering WrestleMania as champion, these segments Friday at least gave the singles match the boost it needs for a big show. A stipulation is going to be required. I would go Falls Count Anywhere, which is always my preference. I hope what we saw on Friday night is indicative of that being the stipulation. But we all know WWE loves to default to last man standing for one reason or another. So fingers crossed it's Falls Count Anywhere or an inventive, perhaps new stipulation instead. Good work from both guys here, particularly McIntyre, who attacked and sold well throughout all three phases. It was very much Peter Griffin versus the chicken from Family Guy, two guys fighting for 3 hours. Hell, you know what? They could do something inventive to that end at WrestleMania too. Start fighting on night one, get driven off in an ambulance somewhere, come back, continue fighting night two, end of the match. I don't think they'll do it, but that would be pretty funny if they did. Now, Vintage submitted a grade for this and a number of other segments as part of this breakdown, so I will give his grade as well. He gives this a light good. He called it a little bit corny, but it was fine for a non-main event feud. It's kind of what I was saying before. It needed to be a little bit more realistic. Sami Zayn backstage said he needed to focus on Aleister Black given he's a dangerous opponent, but he can't stop thinking about Cody regaining the WWE title. He credited Rhodes for going above and beyond to be a good guy and make the fans happy, yet he said that left him in a pool of blood the prior week. At the same time, Orton can be a piece of garbage, yet he winds up with the upper hand holding the championship. Sami said he feels like everyone is pulling away from him and that the positive world he wants simply does not exist. Trick Williams came through talking smack, reminding that he beat Jacob Fatu last week despite Zayn's sarcasm. Sami was ready to fight, so Trick said he'd check his Palm Pilot and maybe watch his match to give him some pointers. Good segment, that's my grade, but I was so bothered by Trick mentioning a Palm Pilot. I mean, it popped me because I used to have one, but that shit came out when he was 2 years old and disappeared before he was a teenager. There is no way Trick is referencing a Palm Pilot naturally. It leads me to believe the promo was scripted or enhanced somehow by a writing team, which is just silly. Anyway, the tease of Sami's heel turn, it's ramping up nicely. And while it does feel like a Trick match might happen at WrestleMania, I maintain that Zayn being left off the card would be far better for him coming out of WrestleMania than being on the show and losing. We had Zayn against Black. Let's just say Zelina continues to impress every week.
You rub me just right every week.
Williams made a full entrance, lights, smoke, and all, after the competitors were already in the ring. Black hit arguably the most perfect leaping knee I've ever seen at the break. Joe Tessitore randomly called Williams Trick Daddy during this match, which popped me. I don't know if he was getting a nickname over or referencing Trick Daddy or just accidentally called him Trick Daddy. Either way, it was funny. Sami received a lukewarm reaction to hitting an exploder suplex. Aleister rolled outside near Trick, leading to them getting in a little bit of a skirmish that ended with Williams splashing his drink onto Zayn's back. Sami lost his focus, attacked Trick in his chair, then he beat the count and immediately ate a Black mass upon re-entry. Black sold this incredibly well, shaking his head after delivering his own finisher, taking his time with the cover and getting the 1-2-3. I mentioned a moment ago that the leaping knee was textbook. The Black mass could not have been more perfect, because that shit drilled Zayn in the face legitimately. He held his orbital bone after the bell. I have no doubt he got legitimately hurt eating the move. Hopefully it's just a bruise and not a fracture or something. The finish was executed as well as possible, even if it was entirely predictable with Trick ringside. A theme from SmackDown is that none of the matches were long enough, but it was good, and it accomplished its goal for all three guys. Black has quietly been stacking wins of late, and Zayn's immense downward spiral continues. Vintage gives both segments a good as well, and like me, he enjoyed the strong match finish and how Black shrugged after hitting Black Mass delaying the pin. He mentioned how the move has been super protected, which is important because it's a great finisher. Becky Lynch hit the ring on Raw, angry that fans cheer for AJ Lee, someone who abandoned them for a decade, yet they boo her, someone who has been there for them except for a 10-month period where she left to take care of her family when her dominance and greatness was no longer being appreciated. Becky said she purposefully went after the Intercontinental Championship when she returned, making it the most important women's title in all of wrestling at the time. No lies detected there. She explained how it bothers her the title was not only stolen away, but its prestige is now being lessened around Lee's waist. Bex was further annoyed that Rue has been emulating AJ at home, the last remnants of the Divas era that she murdered. What a bar from Bex. AJ ran out to confront her, hopping on the announce table, flexing that she's gotten the best of Becky every single time they've fought, and she's now clearly Rue's favorite wrestler. She wants to embarrass her once more to get Becky away from the title for good, and she wants to do it at WrestleMania. Lynch loved that Lee played right into her hands, considering she dominates at Mania, reminding that AJ resigned the day after her last Mania appearance, and Lynch promised we would never hear from Lee again, this time after she loses. This was easily, I say easily, their best one-on-one segment since they started feuding. Helping matters is that Becky moved back to being, I don't know, like 85% pure heel and 15% parody, as opposed to 75% parody, which is how she had been rolling of late. Angry, focused, determined Bex is the best version of her heel character, and everything she said in her promo was not only logical, it was factual. Fans did get tired of her in the main event. She did help end the Divas era, and she did return to elevate the brand new title into the biggest women's championship in the company for an extended period. It does mean a lot to her. That is something we talked about on this show for months, how Becky Lynch and the Intercontinental title was more important than both women's championships, the quote-unquote world championships in WWE. Even AJ was at her best here. Not so much focused on getting cheers as a sarcastic face with quips, but rather throwing a couple zingers and then just standing confident as champion. Coupled with AJ's recently improved wrestling, they have taken a feud that was getting a bit long in the tooth and kind of getting cold. They've given it fresh energy, and it badly needed that for a rematch. This gets a good. Now, there is still plenty of time to build this, and as such, I hope there are plans for a stipulation of some kind to differentiate this from their prior matches. The move really should be submission match, because Bex has already tapped out to AJ a few times, and that would allow Disarm Her to get reintroduced as a legitimate finisher alongside Manhandle Slam, which Becky badly needs. Lynch should be the champion coming out of this show, and she really should win with a submission, so you might as well make it the stipulation. Now, Vintage is giving this a bad, saying it was nothing new between them. This was his only grade that he sent in for this overall segment that I simply do not understand. This did not feel repetitive at all, considering how Becky became more serious and AJ dropped the sarcasm. Granted, this has been going on so long, there's only so much left for them to say, but for him to give it a bad grade was very surprising to me. Again, his other grades, even if we disagree, no issue with them. This one I take a little bit of an issue with. Jade Cargill, looking like a mixture of, I don't know, Grimace and Barney, but with cleavage, called out Rhea Ripley the second she got in the ring. Ripley asked why she was even out there, considering they had already done plenty of talking. Jade said Rhea needs the title, whereas she doesn't need the title, the ring, or the fans. She's that bitch with or without wrestling. Okay, so why are you there, girl? Like, what are you doing there? Cargill answered my rhetorical question by quoting CM Punk, saying she's not there to make friends, but to make mo money. Ripley agreed, saying she does need the title. It's everything she worked to achieve. Then she cut Cargill off as she tried to disrespect her, tried to disrespect wrestling, and even tried to disrespect Io Sky. Rhea said the WWE title needs her more than ever after being around Jade's waist, and since she wants it, she's just going to take it. Ripley said challenging Cargill put the bitch in the big leagues and dared her to swing at her. Jade appeared to dip out, however, Meechin and BFAB blocked her path before ultimately not just standing alongside her, but attacking Ripley shield style. Michin landed one kendo stick, then dropped the weapon for some strange reason. She should have kept laying that in. Jade delivered a big right hand and then hit Jade to stand tall at the end. I didn't know how to grade this segment watching it initially, and even breaking it down now, I'm of a mixed mind. This delivered on the Jade BFAB interaction last week. It created some unexpected intrigue with a new group, but an explanation is badly needed next week, considering these women hated Cargill for like 6 months and both got injured by her in reality, which they took and flipped to make kayfabe on TV. Beyond that, I have major reservations about giving Jade a group when we saw the way the baddies went in AEW. Just like she's back to only saying, I'm that bitch. If WWE just repeats the concept of that group, it is going to fail. What's next? Are they going to give her a lawyer as a manager? Like, their beats with her and the heel turn are what she did in AEW that did not work. That made me as a viewer angry because she was capable of more. Even if she's never going to be a great wrestler in the ring, you can make someone an intriguing character. And saying I'm that bitch and having two undercard women fight your battles and take L's for you, again, not only is it not great, it's repetitive. We've already seen it. Even if most of the WWE audience, the vast majority of it, doesn't watch AEW, many of them don't even know it exists, there's another portion of us that have seen this already and know it doesn't work. The face-to-face beforehand with Rhea, that was her best interaction with Jade yet. And Jade's stance of, I don't need this shit, while holding the title, it did ring hollow. But let me clarify. I believed her. But even as a heel, that's not what I, as someone watching the product, wants to hear. If she doesn't care, why should I? Still, saying she's above wrestling, it worked because it allowed Rhea to stand up for wrestling. And that was positive in her favor because Ripley was miles better in the ring than she was last week. That was the biggest positive. And creating additional adversity for her, that's important. Though after watching this Friday, I was back to being concerned that she's going to need backup in a 3-on-1 situation. Again, with Io being the most obvious person to help her. I hate to be pessimistic about Io and WrestleMania, but after this segment on Friday, the pessimism felt justified. This was 2 steps forward, but it was also 1 step back. Progress for sure, not enough of it. Better, but I'm still grading it a light bad. Now, Vintage gives this a good. He was confused about Jade covering up her muscles when that was a big part of the story coming in, and he similarly wants an explanation from BFAB and Michin beyond can't beat him, join him. After this segment ended, the heel face alignment on SmackDown for the women's division, it's something like 10-3. I'd have to do a count, but there's 3 times as many heels as there are faces. And one of the faces, Tiffany Stratton, is absolutely terrible at being a face. Hence why this division is in such significant trouble. The women's tag team championships were on the line. Irresistible Forces defending against the Bella Twins, who I will remind had not even had a tag team match in 8 years, yet somehow are number 1 contenders for the titles. The challengers backstage claimed they paved the way for these titles to even exist. What? Charlexa then interrupted eating ice cream, calling the Bellas selfish for interrupting their title match, saying they won't do the same, but they do want to challenge the winners. The Bellas insisted they watch how real legends wrestle. The Forces later got a promo package reiterating what I said last week. The Bellas haven't teamed in nearly a decade, and they have no business challenging them. They also called out Charlexa, as well as the Kabuki Warriors, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, all of them not being on their level. This effectively main evented the show. It was the final match. Brie completely forgot the Bellas' signature ring entrance. Charlexa made their entrance less than 60 seconds after the bell rang. Brie hit a nice missile dropkick. Nikki did a nice flying double crossbody ringside. Nia Jax absolutely murked Nikki with an avalanche Samoan drop. Lash Legend followed with a frog splash. As Nikki locked in the STF, Nia tried to use the title on Brie, but Charlotte Flair prevented it for a predictable disqualification. Nikki then punched Alexa Bliss, and all 6 women brawled, with the champions landing their awesome tandem leg drop finisher to stand tall. Charlexa against the Bellas was then booked for next week. Now, let me be clear. As a segment, this sucked. It was entirely predictable, paint by numbers, something we have seen a million times. But when I went over to Cage Match to see how long this match ran, it was 8 minutes, by the way, I saw it received a 1.59 grade, the equivalent of 1 star and a D-. That is outside the realm of reality. It was nowhere near that bad as a match, despite being an immensely poor segment and, yes, a bad match. Going back to how this started, the Bellas being baby faces yet taking credit for modern women's wrestling, that's a heel move. This after Nikki had been a heel who turned face for an unexplained reason. So I have no idea what they are supposed to be. As I said last week, the idea of a massive women's tag team title match at WrestleMania, it was awesome when we were talking about it in late 2025, early 2026. At that time, the titles were held by Rio. Now that they are out of the division and the Bellas have been inserted, it's like taking Aaron Judge out of the Yankees lineup and replacing him with Jason Giambi. But like today's version of Jason Giambi, 55-year-old Jason Giambi. The Raw side badly needs to get involved for this to work. The problem is the match doesn't just need one of those teams. It needs both Bayley and Lyra and the Kabuki Warriors. But then if they do that, Io basically has no path to WrestleMania. This is just not hitting like it should, and it's pretty damn disappointing considering we were thinking this might be as good, if not better, than both of the women's singles title matches, and yet now it is clearly behind both of those. I'm going bad. It was super close to ugly, and Vintage agrees. He's going with ugly. He called it a total waste of time, and you know what? At the end of the day, it is real tough to argue with that.
0.0.
0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
That is one big pile of shit.
Bayley and Lyra Valkyria fought the Kabuki Warriors over on Raw. The faces not only entered to Lyra's music, fans did Valkyria chants on both instances of the chorus, but they were louder the first time. Lyra hit a great Liger bomb on Kairi Sane after the break, only to get delayed vertical suplex countered into a DDT. The Warriors landed a codebreaker neckbreaker combo. Asuka then took a spinning heel kick, fisherman's buster, and elbow drop from Bayley, who sold frustration at only getting a near fall. Asuka got put into the announce table with Bayley to belly, only for Kairi to save her from an elbow drop off the barricade. Bayley ate shit on the announce table landing that. Valkyria then caught both of them with a dropkick through the ropes, hitting Nightwing on Kairi for the clean 1-2-3. Unfortunately, there was a real clunky interview after the bell where Lyra stumbled a bit while challenging the forces, and Bayley mentioned Madison Square Garden as the most famous arena in the world. Technically, it's called the world's most famous arena. But she did this in Boston, which obviously got booed. Now, she improv'd by separating what she said from her character, but it nevertheless left a lot to be desired in terms of crowd reaction. They were expecting a huge babyface pop. They got understandable boos and had to save it. But again, credit to Bayley for the improv. The match was definitely good. The promo segment was not. More important, extremely well done match story. It deserved a far better reaction from the crowd as it progressed, though the faces did get a nice pop for the creative finish. Kairi twice saving Asuka, only to take the fall, was great. Bayley twice failing to get the job done, only for Lyra to save her on the back end and win the match. That is the perfect way to extend not just one, but two different storylines for WrestleMania. Vintage, by the way, also gives this a good for the exact reasons I mentioned. It was necessary to do the title challenge next week. They presumably need to do a 4-woman interference leading to a 4-team match at WrestleMania. Hopefully it can be a bit more creative than that, with Asuka and Kairi seemingly being eliminated from this mix. Just days after I had a pessimistic view about Io fighting on the show, suddenly that possibility sprang back, even more so because of what happened next. Backstage, Asuka admonished Kairi for losing the match, screaming at her and walking away. Io, who was wearing a Rhea shirt, by the way, got a massive pop coming in to console her, saying they may be at odds, but Sane deserves better than to be treated like this. Asuka then screamed and rattled Sane as usual. Raquel Rodriguez then confronted Io, saying she made a mistake getting in their business last week and challenging to a match. After this ended, Liv Morgan entered alongside Dominic Mysterio for his Intercontinental Championship match. And I swear, this woman is in contention for more than one title on a weekly basis right now. Because holy hell.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
And you know what that means. The Hey Now Championship is officially on the line. Jackie Redmond and her nude-colored dress from a couple weeks ago defending against Liv Morgan in this white top with a white thong pulled up, Divas era style and jeans, rocking alongside Dominic. So look, Silver King is rocking solo here. Vintage is traveling. This is purely at my discretion. And while Jackie had a tremendous run with multiple successful defenses, perhaps more than we both would have thought, one could argue this was among Liv's best looks ever, to the point that I legitimately believe this may be the longest reign yet, and she might even carry it through WrestleMania. So I believe, for the fourth time, Liv Morgan has won back the Hey Now Championship. And new Hey Now champion, Liv Morgan. On that note, we may need to ensure this does not turn into like the WWE 24/7 title. I had no inclination there would be so many changes in such a short period of time when this idea came up at the start of the year. I figured people would have reigns lasting months. Maybe it's just a crazy start to 2026. I also do need a listener to help us keep track of the length of these reigns. So if you want, make sure you are signed up for our Slack. You can get the link to the Slack, the invite link, on our social media profiles at Getting Overcast. I'm going to do a casting call in the Slack to have someone officially be in charge of counting the reigns, the champions, ensuring that we have the data to back up the Hey Now Championship that we, of course, put forward on this podcast. I didn't think it'd be every week, but so far, pretty much every week. Back to the show. Stephanie Vaquer attacked Liv from behind while she was walking with Dominic, got a massive pop. Then she actually punched Dominic before they got separated by officials. That allowed Morgan to get the upper hand, shove Vaquer into the Titantron. She sold it perfectly, like she got knocked out. The brawl exploded even further into gorilla position, and Liv took a massive spinebuster into the floor that made a real loud noise and again got a major reaction. This was a hot 1-2 punch that followed up last week's booking nicely. I expected Io tagging with Stephanie against Liv and Raquel, but the idea may be to get Sky a reestablishment singles victory over Rodriguez before she presumably gets into a match with Asuka and possibly Kairi at WrestleMania. Io expanded on her goals in a Japanese social media promo. She said, even though Kairi made her own choice to follow Asuka, it's not right how she's being treated, and Io needs her to recognize that. So she said she would finish up with Raquel, then focus on helping Kairi. That makes me feel so much better after Raw than I did after SmackDown regarding Io having a direction for WrestleMania. Rodriguez being left without a match would be unfortunate, but she could probably accompany Morgan, factor into the finish of the Women's World Championship match, setting up their eventual feud for some point later this year. On the other side of this, since I combined two segments into one, you have Liv and Stephanie who went at each other like they were feral. The shit reminded me of a fight I used to see at high school parties. It came across like a real brawl, and we've seen this division do things like this before, but we hadn't since Jade and Naomi last year inside Elimination Chamber. In both cases, this is the type of women's storytelling Raw was cooking with over the latter half of 2025. And as I said with Jay earlier in the show, it feels like WWE had put this Io and Asuka storyline on ice before realizing, hey, we can bubble this back up now that Ripley's attentions are diverted elsewhere. Regardless of the why, I'm glad to see it come back while building multiple WrestleMania matches simultaneously. This, to me, gets a double good. Vintage only gives it a light good. He sarcastically noted how there was another attack from behind in a Stephanie Liv segment. That's true, but this one was a banger. I mean, Liv, she doesn't care. Like, she'll just take any punishment that someone will deliver to her. She'll laugh about it and just move on with her life. It's crazy how this woman works and how much punishment she is willing to take. I'm surprised Vintage was light on this one. I thought both of these segments were super strong. The Intercontinental Championship was on the line, Penta defending against Dominic. The former champion got a promo package before the bell, blaming Finn Balor for putting him in this position and promising Penta he is now fully focused on getting his title back. I Show Speed later dapped up Penta and Dragon Lee. The latter thanked the champion for giving him the opportunity to honor Lucha Libre with him last week. Dom attacked before the championship announcement in the ring, drawing additional heat. Penta Driver landed after the break. It was a bit clunky, but still effective. Dom caught him running back with a Michinoku Driver to counter a Mexican Destroyer. The setup into a 619 attempt was even clunkier, though Dom was able to land it on a second try. As he climbed for a frog splash, Balor interrupted with his entrance, running JD McDonough into the Titantron over some road cases too. Dom just watched this whole time, staying there. Penta eventually converted the frog splash into a small package, used double knees, caught him, moved it into a small package, and retained the title. Now, Corey Graves clarified that the finish was similar to how Dom beat Finn for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania last year. That's true, and it was crucial for the at-home audience to know. Now, Balor took it to Mysterio after the bell. he got surprisingly huge babyface reactions. He even thwarted a McDonough save with a tope con hero before Dom ran away and just watched as Finn hit coup de grace on his protege. Despite all of that, this gets a bad. Not because it was ill-conceived or illogical or anything, but simply because the match fell so far below expectations, there's no other way to grade it. And it was among the weakest parts of an extremely strong Raw. So it's somewhat circumstantial too. The setup to the finish was also trite and, frankly, pretty boring. They drew a parallel to WrestleMania 41. Okay, I get it. But Penta is a brand new champion. He needs to win matches in exciting fashion. Balor costing Mysterio was enough. Let Penta go and win with his finisher. I'll give WWE credit for attempting to pull the thread from last year and remind us what happened, but you can do that in a video package. And in this, given the circumstances, you should have just had Penta win the match. Now, Vintage disagrees with me. He gives us a good. He would have liked a little bit more of an impactful return moment for Balor, but it still worked, he said. Frankly, I forgot this was even a return situation. In that regard, he's certainly correct. And like I said, there were positives to take away from this when it comes to Balor and Mysterio and the reaction they're getting for WrestleMania. It's just the match was such a massive letdown that when I'm grading the segment in totality, I gotta lean on the bad side. Something I've begun to wonder between Raw on Monday night and taping this show is whether Dom and Finn wind up involved in the Intercontinental title match at Mania, only to break off and go one-on-one at Backlash. With the way Mania is getting loaded up, I'm not sure them wrestling in a non-title singles match is necessary or even possible on that show when it looks like we're going to have 3 other non-title men's singles matches already on the card. The parallel to Mysterio beating Balor on last year's show, that can play with them again contending for the IC title in a similar situation, either costing each other the belt and then fighting in May, or maybe Balor pins Dom to win the title and Penta's run is short-lived. Don't get me wrong. I'd love for Balor to get his singles match against Dominic on this show, but there's only so much space and you're not going to put them on instead of, let's say, Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker. Certainly not. Obviously, Obafemi and Brock Lesnar, which has already been announced. Jey Uso and LA Knight is a lot stronger than Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio, as much as I love Balor and want him to get this opportunity. So they may need to shove this into the Intercontinental title picture. That's something that we will discuss a little bit later in the show and also in the additional content that we are serving you on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover this week. There was a U.S. Open challenge on SmackDown. Carmelo Hayes defending against Ilya Dragunov. Melo backstage was informed by Aldis that someone made a compelling case to face him on the show. Ilya appeared behind him, saying he realized he cannot be the man that he's supposed to be if he's not competing for gold. Then he promised pain would entertain, no matter who experiences it. Dragunov delivered a tremendous Constantine special before Hayes defenestrated him out of the ring with a tope suicida that led to him drilling the announce table to loud chants and cheers. He landed a huge frog splash back inside, but ate a German suplex and a flying senton. Melo again intercepted Ilya's coast-to-coast with first 48 in midair, but Dragunov fell forward with an H-bomb for a foot rope break at 2.9. This match I did not see in full. I am sure they balled out during commercial as well. Dragunov hit a rolling Death Valley driver on the apron before Hayes tremendously countered a superplex midair into a cutter. They had a fun sequence trading haymakers before Ilya emulated Gunther with a powerbomb stack and a backbreaker. Melo intercepted Torpedo Moscow with another first 48 for a false finish, but Ilya avoided nothing but net and hit Torpedo Moscow, only for Hayes to counter a powerbomb into a code red for a sudden 1-2-3 and a title retention. What an effing banger! And a tremendous call from Barrett saying they were both so good in the match that WWE should create a second U.S. title just so Dragunov could carry one. Wrong company, Wade. The other one would do that. Outstanding stuff here. I wish I had been able to see the additional 4 minutes because this went 16 in total, and that's generally fine from a length standpoint. That's what she said. But it still fell a bit short, only seeing 12 live. These are legitimate fight forever opponents at this point, and it rings true every time they square off. It was a bit confusing for Ilya last week to be so firm against challenging for the title, only for this week to change his mind. And really, I wish this had just been saved for WrestleMania, either on the show itself or the go-home SmackDown, so they could go 20-plus minutes and just go insane. Maybe Ilya turns heel and that still happens, but that doesn't change the grade from a good, and I'm extremely curious to see the direction of both guys going forward. 4.25 stars. Excellent wrestling, the best WWE match of the week by a mile. And by the way, Melo is now 3-1 against Ilya on the main roster, but that means they're 4-4 against each other since NXT because the record was flipped. Dragunov had a 3-1 advantage over Hayes on that brand, just for the record. Juliana agreed with each other backstage, with the champion prepared to put Tiffany Stratton in her place next week. Chelsea Green and Alba Fire interrupted, saying Chelsea also hates Tiffy, so they should all align, but Julia declined. That was it. Ungradable. 3-hour show, a flubbed and out-of-order storyline last week. Absolutely nothing to show for it this week. No attempt to cover it, adjust it, nothing. Frustrating as hell. At least it kind of seemed like we might get the Juliana split that we've long wanted, but who the hell knows at this point. WWE Tag Team Championships, Tama Tonga and JC Mateo defending against Damian Priest and R-Truth. The crowd was wild for Truth, both leading into and during his hot tag. He hit the 5 moves of doom before taking a sweet spinning backdrop from Mateo. Truth then randomly hit the Stone Cold Stunner on Tama Tonga and locked Mateo in the STF. A distraction allowed Tama Tonga to break it with a chokeslam. He hit Truth on the apron as he has been recently. The Wyatt 6 ran out to neutralize MFT, but Solo Sikoa was able to escape with the lantern. Truth ultimately hit Attitude Adjustment on Mateo to crown new WWE Tag Team Champions. The crowd went absolutely ballistic, and Priest sold the hell out of this finish with a look of utter shock and surprise on his face that allowed the moment to sing. And if you told me that they shot something for WWE Unreal where they did not tell Priest the finish of this match, I would believe you. That is how convincing his surprise face was. Tons of pyro on stage to seal this. And like I said, the fans were absolutely nuts for the new champions. I watched the first hour of SmackDown really late Friday, and I was able to see this whole match on Netflix. When I rewatched to take notes, it obviously cut out the action during the break. That ultimately led me to feel that for the American audience, this was way too short for a title change. Beyond that, it's patently ridiculous that Priest and Truth won the titles in their 3rd match together with all these months of the straps being handcuffed in this ridiculous MFT 6 vortex. However, there is absolutely no denying how insane the crowd was for this match and the booking decision, and you all know there is massive potential getting the tag team titles out of this go nowhere storyline. Combined with another tag team match later in the show, it feels like the division has gotten a kick in the ass, and ultimately this is kind of a monkey's paw situation. I've been calling for Priest to team with Truth for like 2 months now. WWE finally does it. They push them too hard too fast. Now, maybe it's because of what Vintage and I discussed earlier as a possibility, merging the tag team titles at WrestleMania. That would make sense. Still, more positive than negative. Happy for Truth. And the grade is just as much on behalf of my enjoyment of the segment as it is the fans who went insane for this. And that grade, of course, is good. This was also, by the way, the closest JC has looked like Jeff Cobb in WWE. I wish we could get more of that. I'm not going to hold my breath for it. Vintage gives us a good, similarly pointing to Priest's reaction and how he is so suddenly happy and comfortable in this role where he was really struggling beforehand. But he said this would have been good no matter which challenger team won because it exercises the titles from the 6 and MFT. True. Sikoa flipped out at MFT backstage, admonishing them for losing the titles, costing the family a WrestleMania opportunity. Mateo tried to explain that it was on the 6 interfering, but Sikoa blamed JC and Tama for the loss. Tama told Solo to give the lantern back to them because he's no longer acting like himself. He's starting to sound like Roman. Just as Solo was reacting to that, the segment got interrupted. Now, if this leads to the end of MFT, that's going to be a huge positive. And I do like to a degree that the lantern has become a corrupting influence out of the hands of the people to whom it belongs. Either way, the other guy's actually getting an opportunity to speak, and Tama continuing to be positioned as someone of note coming out of this group, those are positives. I know I've been saying that word a lot recently, but in these segments, it really was, among stuff that is kind of annoying and frustrating, there are rays of light emanating from them. This was a light good. Danhausen bumped into Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, the latter of whom asked if he could figure out what was wrong with her husband and possibly fix it with a curse. Danhausen charged her $20 human, but disappeared immediately after being paid. Motor City Machine Guns then walked through the segment with Chris Sabin redirecting Alex Shelley's attention from them to their forthcoming match. So we had Fraxium against MCMG. Fraxium got zero reaction upon entering, and despite MCMG's entrance full of pyro, which remains hysterical, and it was probably part of their contract or something, but MCMG, which are never on screen, no one gives a shit about, get all this pyro, yet Rhea Ripley can't even get pyro for her entrance. It's crazy to me. They barely got a reaction, like I said. That changed for both teams 30 seconds after the bell rang. Axiom hit a leaping dropkick, and from there, the match was a barn burner. American fans missed a lot during the break, but it stayed hot afterward. Axiom hit a tornado arm drag before Nathan Frazier landed a frog splash. Sabin took out Fraxium with a double froggy crossbody before combining with Shelley for Magic Killer. Candice then came out to watch as Fraxium hit 4 straight tope suicidas. MCMG prevented their finisher. Candice slugged Frazier through the ropes. The referee was distracted when that happened. That allowed Sabin to roll him up and get the win. Disappointing finish, a roll up when you have a match of this caliber between these guys, particularly considering the crowd was really buying into the action, and both teams, as I have said many times, quality wrestling and clean finishes can accomplish so much. Still, there were far more positives than negatives here. 2 great teams were featured. The Gargano-LeRae situation progressed. Danhausen was a cherry on top backstage. 3.75 stars B+ for the match. The second best match of this entire week. And this does get a good. I will also note, we got a couple of different Hey Now requests for Candice LeRae, who was kind of rocking the old Io Sky black leather pants in this segment. Not going to go so far as that. What I will say,
that's the most action I've had all year.
The Miz was all out of sorts backstage, explaining to Kit Wilson how his entire week has been weird, the presumption being it all came from Danhausen's curse. Danhausen showed up, but Miz and Kit again shunned him, only for a ladder to fall on top of Miz as Wilson departed. There was also a very funny comment about Dracula and Danhausen not knowing who Dracula is, even though, of course, he dresses like a vampire. Kit later called out Jelly Jam to the ring, so he stormed out, demanding to fight. Wilson suggested they settle it as gentlemen by fighting with their words, not their fists, in a slam poetry battle. So Jelly Jam was pretty funny, expressing shock that Kit had this whole book prepared. Wilson took shots at him for his criminal past, being a melted blob of skin, saying he's proof Ozempic works, and now he can see his little willy. The crowd went absolutely wild for every one of these lines, every single one. Jelly Jam responded by saying he doesn't need to see his willy since Kit's mom takes care of it for him. Wilson attacked from behind and landed a pretty sick flying corkscrew elbow drop to end the segment. Jelly Jam backstage demanded a match against Wilson, so all to set the match for next week on SmackDown. My eyes rolled so far back in my head when this segment began, and then all of a sudden, Kit starts reciting this poetry. I audibly laughed 2 to 3 different times, to the point that I started hating myself for enjoying it. If WWE wants to put Jelly Roll in a TV feud with Kit Wilson, you're not going to get an argument from me. Just keep it off of WrestleMania, though we all know it's somehow, some way going to wind up on that show. To my utter shock, yeah, this was good. Kit and or the writers crushed it. The only weird part about Jelly Jam is that he talks as if he's been around this company and the wrestlers for 5 to 10 years versus the reality, 5 to 10 months. And I'll also reiterate, because I've said this before, both on the show and in my personal life, there has never been a single instance in which I've seen or heard Jelly Roll that was my choice. It has been thrust upon me every time. A label and a PR firm decided one day they're going to put their full weight behind him in millions of dollars of publicity. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he was shoved down our throats wherever you listen to music, watch TV, consume content online. Even if I stopped watching wrestling tomorrow, he'd still somehow be in my entertainment sphere. And not only do I not get it, I don't get how so many people have bought into this guy being something. And again, that is with me respecting his promo work across this entire show and largely believing he's good working with WWE, even if I don't like it. But it's not that I don't like it. It's really just that I don't get it.
I don't get it. I'm sorry. I don't get it.
Danhausen backstage on Raw interrupted I Show Speed, who was meeting with Pierce. Danhausen introduced himself, and he didn't understand the difference between 180 followers and 180 million followers, which is what Speed has. He suggested Speed give him the YouTube channel and they split the profits. When Speed, of course, refused, Danhausen cursed him and disappeared. Speed sold the curse arguably better than anyone else has to date. He was visibly shaken and concerned by what that meant. They later raced on a Twitter segment with Speed losing, so it seems like Danhausen is going to show up on his YouTube channel. Speed is one of the few celebrities WWE has occasionally inserted into its product recently who simply just does not bother me in any way. He brings a chaotic energy. He attracts young fans. As far as I know, he's not problematic in any way. And the guy has twice taken major bumps, asking pretty much nothing in return. Now he's involved with a low card dude and making the most of it. And he has personality +2. This was good. And it's fun how Danhausen is almost like this backstage gremlin who just gets involved in this or that. He causes trouble and no one has any idea how to get a handle on him. Javon Evans fought Grayson Waller. Javon hit a wild tope suicida early in the match. And while we know Jessica Carr is corrupt, I got to give her credit for doing one of the smoothest and simplest medical checks I have ever seen after he hit a froggy crossbody for a near fall back in the ring. Waller argued with Kofi Kingston for not helping him, giving Evans an opening, hit a tope con hero and steal Graves' headset. I haven't seen Waller wrestle much recently. It was slightly odd for him to be wearing like black pants with gloves instead of his shorts from back in the day. He somehow looked more generic here. Evans hit Red Dot only to eat some stiff shots. He slipped on a bottom rope springboard, but caught Waller rolling with a pump knee, only for Waller to hit a flip over unprettier that wasn't executed well, let me be clear. But if it had been, it deserved a much better reaction. Javon then box jumped to the top rope, looking like he was going to hit a Spanish fly. Instead, he did an avalanche hurricanrana followed by an OG cutter for the win. Kofi, after the bell, told Grayson he didn't help him cheat because he wants him to learn how to win on his own. Terrific finish. Nice extended feature spot for Javon to continue this TV feud. Wasn't the greatest match. We've seen better from both of these guys, but overall, it's a good. Evans later got a promo during the break, basically reiterating that he doesn't want to be the next version of Kingston, but rather the first version of himself. Then he inserted himself as a challenger for Penta's Intercontinental title, definitely pointing to this chaotic multi-man match as we have theorized for the show, getting Javon and Penta, maybe Kofi Kingston in there, possibly Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. That's a match that people are definitely going to want to see. While I do have notes from AAA this week, I'm going to pretty much save all of them for Thursday's show, with the exception of what happened with El Grande Americano, because that kind of continued into Raw on Monday night. So Americano was presented the Rey de Reyes sword in a ceremony that featured multiple former winners. I knew this was important for AAA. I didn't realize how big of a deal it was for Americano to actually win it, especially considering his gimmick. The dude is so ridiculously over that when he came out, he kissed a Mexican baby like he was running for president of the country. He thanked the fans for being his family, for accepting him and loving him. He put over Mexico and its culture, heritage, and he added that a Mexican can be born wherever he wants, seeming to acknowledge the situation of his gimmick without directly saying it. Dominic Mysterio interrupted by trashing his father, Rey, for never winning the Mega Championship or Rey de Reyes, which is really funny because Rey had to translate that himself into English on commentary. As Dominic and Americano argued, Original attacked Grande from behind, ripped at the mask until Los Americanos saved. So Original stole the Rey de Reyes sword and celebrated on the announce table, which was a great visual to end the show. So that is what happened in that feud from the Rey de Reyes Week 2 on AAA, which aired this past Saturday. The rest of the show we'll talk about Thursday when we cover NXT, AEW, and anything else that is straggling out there. However, there were some Los Americanos segments from Raw on Monday night. Both of them happened during a commercial break. Los Americanos got a promo referring to Original stealing the Rey de Reyes sword, saying he can take objects, he cannot steal the heart and soul of the Mexican people. Despite Grande wearing black and being positioned as a heel, he got cheers multiple times during this promo, which was 80% in Spanish. He said something about taking off Original's mask in Mexico. Original did get promo time a few breaks later, cutting what was supposed to be a babyface promo, equating himself to the American audience, saying Grande is trying to steal his legacy. Graves then explained that this version is Original, but the other is the real Americano. In other words, positioning themselves as baby faces on different brands. The guy is the first one to wear the mask. The other one is the one who actually embodies what El Grande Americano is supposed to be. I couldn't rewatch to translate what Grande said because it happened during the break. I didn't have an issue with these happening during the commercial on a loaded show. I just wish the video package portion that preceded the first promo would have aired on Raw. This all depends whether it's going to happen at Mania or be exclusive on TV. It should really be on TV, building for the AAA show. As much as the Americano feud is working, there's so much happening at WrestleMania this year. It just doesn't feel right for that show. It really should be on like the Go Home Raw, just a match between them that bubbles up to a AAA Mania mask versus mask match. So fingers crossed, that is where it's headed. So that is the end of the good, the bad, and the ugly. We have a few minutes left over here. I want to go over the WWE WrestleMania 42 card as it stands right now. We'll also discuss what matches are likely and which others are possible. And then, as mentioned, this coming week on buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, Silver King will put together what the ideal WrestleMania 42 card would look like based on everything that is currently happening. So look out for that, and please consider supporting us. So there are 7 official matches for the card right now. The World Heavyweight Championship, CM Punk against Roman Reigns, the Night 2 main event. The WWE Championship, Cody Rhodes against Randy Orton, the Night 1 main event. The Women's World Championship, Stephanie Vaquera against Liv Morgan, which just feels like it is in need of a stipulation given the way they're going at each other. This could be very simple, no holds barred, something like that. The WWE Women's Championship, Jade Cargill against Rhea Ripley, by far the weakest out of the 7 in terms of build to this point. No stipulation needed for this. Oba Femi versus Brock Lesnar. Crazy last 2 weeks. Jacob Fatu versus Drew McIntyre. I actually, now that I say it, I'm forgetting whether that's official. I want to say it's not official. We all know it's going to happen on the show. That one badly needs a stipulation. And then Intercontinental Championship, AJ Lee against Becky Lynch, which also should have a stipulation, ideally a submission match playing into the storyline. So those are the 7 matches that are official or obviously happening. Here are 4 to 5 others that seem to be getting booked for the show. Seth Rollins versus Braun Breaker, entirely dependent, of course, on Breaker getting cleared. Io Sky versus Asuka, possibly involving Kairi Sane in a triple threat. The Women's Tag Team Championships, Irresistible Forces against Charlexa, the Bella Twins, Bayley, and Lyra Valkyria. Men's Intercontinental Championship, some type of multi-person match, maybe with a stipulation added, a ladder or something. You get Penta, Javon, Dragon Lee, I forgot to mention him earlier. Maybe Kofi Kingston and others in here, Dominic and Finn, if they are not in a one-on-one match. If they are, of course, Finn Balor and Dominic Mysterio. So if that one is separate, that gets us to 12. And of course, we also don't know exactly what's going on with Breaker. As we've mentioned previously, WWE has been doing 14-match WrestleMania cards, 7 each night this year, with an hour free on ESPN both Saturday and Sunday, and an earlier start time. I just feel like they're going to go to 16. They could go to 18, honestly. They have so many possibilities, as you're going to hear right now. But I think they're going to wind up at 16. So that's at 12. So now I'm going to read, I think, 5 or 6 other potential matches that could make this card. Gunther versus Rey Mysterio. This was planned. The question is whether Rey is going to be healthy and whether they'll have enough time to bubble it up. Otherwise, Gunther may miss this show. Jey Uso against LA Knight. It really seemed to be the direction coming out of Raw. If not, it's possible it's the Usos and the Vision. If it is Jey and LA Knight, then it's possible that it's Priest and Truth against the Vision to merge the titles, or maybe Priest and Truth against like Mizhausen somehow, some way, just based on what they're telling us from television. United States Championship, Julia against Tiffany Stratton, possibly with a Chelsea Green edition. To me, this just feels like the Go Home SmackDown TV match. I would be really surprised if this makes the card. People will be upset if it doesn't, because they love Chelsea Green and they think Julia should be there, and Tiffany Stratton is super over. I get it, but you need to sell tickets to that SmackDown, and this is not strong enough to be on WrestleMania. Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams. Again, this should not be on Mania. I'd put this on SmackDown. The Americano match I mentioned, and also you could do a men's United States Championship match, possibly as simple as Carmelo Hayes against Ilya Dragunov, like last title defense type of stipulation, Iron Man match, best 2 out of 3 falls maybe is something they could do. A lot of options there. So everything I just mentioned could get you anywhere between 18 to 20 matches. That's if WWE utilizes all of them. It makes sense to me with the 12 we already mentioned, assuming Balor and Dominic are separate, for them to throw in Jay and LA Knight. That makes 13, Gunther and Mysterio 14. That, of course, requires Rey to be healthy. A tag team unification match, I believe. I think the men's tag team division will be on the card somehow, some way. I just don't know which title or whether it's both of them, like we talked about. That gets you to 15 matches, and then you just pick one from the rest. Men's U.S. title, women's U.S. title, Sammy and Trick. You figure out something to put on the card, and that gets you to 16. It's also possible they do an odd number, 7 one night, 8 the other. That's, plausible. They could book 7 for one of those nights and throw something with Jelly Roll on there to be the surprise 8th match. We've seen that before too. So that is where the WWE WrestleMania 42 card stands, 25 days away from the showcase of the Immortals. As mentioned, we will break down our card later this week on our premium service, buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. And we will talk more WWE on Thursday when we also break down the week in NXT, AEW, and AAA as well. Make sure you subscribe to the Getting Over Wrestling podcast wherever you can find performance-enhancing audio. Of course, this is the only show that brings you that performance-enhancing audio, but a couple of those places you can find us are Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And when you find us over there, you need to remember,
it's all about the fire.
So be sure to leave a 5-star rating on those services. On Apple, take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast. Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will try to get to those on this Thursday's program. On YouTube, when you subscribe over there, you can listen to the program. And you can also watch full-length video interviews. We have at least 2 coming on the road to WrestleMania 40. That is it for today. It has been an extended WWE edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, as it always is this time of year. For Vintage Chris Manini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.